Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 279 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the next couple hours of gaming discussion, and we have a great show for you guys. It's November, if you can't tell. The games are pouring in. I think my eyeballs are about to fall out of my head from playing so many video games this week. Alongside me to talk about the best stuff in games for the last 7 days is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Not much. I will warn people that my fall allergies have hit me hard in the last 12 hours or so. So I may be coughing and clearing my throat more than usual.
Not COVID.
So apologize for that. But that's what happens down here when the weather gets warm and then it gets cold again and then it gets warm again, then it gets cold again.
Yeah.
The plants go crazy and so do I.
Yeah. It also could just be dust.
Could also be dust. I turned the air conditioning on last night for the first time in a couple months. So.
Yeah, that's the thing about living here is sometimes you go months and months without ever turning on your heat or your air conditioning.
Yeah.
And then you do, and it just blows out all this dust into your living space.
And it goes back and forth. It's like, people have seen when we did the show in my house. They see how big my house is.
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't reflect the temperature. It was like 88, 90 degrees for a few days, and it was like 60 in my house. It wouldn't warm up. And then as soon as the weather went back to being cool, last night it was super hot. For some reason, it's the opposite of what's happening outside. So
the temperature here has been going all over the place the last couple weeks,
which it never used to do in November.
That's true. Yeah, it actually just used to be hot as balls in November. Mm-hmm. We'd have our Indian summer in like late October, early November, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're right; things are different the last couple years as far as how that's worked out. It's funny that we used to think about October; it was always like the hottest month of the year. Like always.
Yeah, moving down here like really changed Halloween costumes. It was like, oh god, it's too hot to wear anything.
I do remember going out on Halloween and wearing like a get-up and just sweating like crazy all night wherever I was. So just a little bit different. It's funny that we're complaining about this because people in the Midwest, in the Northeast, are starting to deal with snow now. Yeah. On the football games on Sunday, it was starting to snow, and all my family in Pennsylvania is like, oh, it's like 28 degrees today, and I'm like, okay, I'll take what we got here. But you pay for it. Mm-hmm. That's what you pay all the money for to live here. So anyway, hope you guys are having a great week. There's no shortage of games to be playing right now, I'll tell you that. There's too many. But we had to cut it off at a certain point, but all the rest of the shows for the rest of this year are going to be packed with great games, or at least games that you guys are really excited about. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about the GTA trilogy, crazy stuff going on around that. We're going to talk about the Elden Ring closed network test. We're going to talk Jurassic World Evolution 2. We're going to talk about Halo Infinite multiplayer. Another big episode for you guys. As far as housekeeping is concerned, we're about to film the last round of Pactor Factor for 2021. So look for questions. We're going to call for questions for that here in the next 2 or 3 days. And as always, you can find it at all the usual spots. You can find it on sifted.net. You can find it on our Patreon. You can find it on our YouTube channel on the community tab. We always get people just submitting questions to the comments on Pactor Factor. And somehow they miss that we ask for questions on YouTube. The best thing you can really do if you want to ask questions is follow Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. We always mention there that, hey, we're asking for questions right now, and we'll provide links to all the different places you can do it. That's the best way to know if we're asking for questions. But anyway, that's coming up. You're going to want to ask him questions about his Thanksgiving, about his Christmas. We're going to want to ask him about his predictions for 2021. So some pretty exciting episodes of that coming up. Another thing, do not buy any of our shirts for the next week and a couple days. We're going to be doing a Black Friday clearance sale on all our most recent shirts, including this shirt and our Sifted Army black shirts. I think, Matt, you were wearing that last week. And so those shirts will be for $10, which is rock bottom, the lowest they'll ever go, the lowest they ever have been. So you've been waiting, and I know some of you guys have figured it out, the whole cycle of our shirts, where they're full price, and then we'll do a flash sale, and then in November we'll do some kind of a Black Friday sale. Here it is. And we don't have a ton of them. I think we have maybe 10 of each style left or something like that. And then another final note, we are beginning to start working on our new shirt. We're not going to have multiple shirts this year. We're going to do one shirt, and we're doing things a little differently this year. Everything's going to be pre-order. We're not going to order a bunch of shirts and have a bunch of inventory laying around for the next 12 months. My wife has decided that she's no longer cool with that. After 5 years of it, she's like, I'm tired of having piles of shirts in our spare bedroom. So this next round of shirts if you have pledged at the Sifted shirt tier at any point this year, you'll get one for free, and we'll reach out to you guys and ask for your sizes. And then the only other shirts that we're going to make are going to be pre-order only. And we'll do a good job of mocking them up and showing you guys what they're going to look like so you'll know what you're getting into. If you've ever bought any of our shirts, you know they're the highest quality screens, the highest quality T-shirts. I think anyone who's ever got a Sifted shirt knows that our stuff is really high quality, and we put a big emphasis on that. So just a heads up, our next round of shirts, there's going to be no inventory at all. You either pre-order the shirts and pay for them up front, or you don't get one at all. It's just the best way to do it. We've tried to do the stock thing, and what happens is we end up with piles of T-shirts in our spare bedroom for like 12 months. And my wife is just sick of it, and I don't blame her. I'm sick of it too. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. I've just started kind of sketching up the design for the new shirts, and we'll probably work with Raphael Michael, the same guy who's done our other shirts. And if you guys have liked what we've done before, then you'll probably like what we're coming out with next. But anyway, Black Friday, clearance sale on this, plus our Sifted Army shirts. $10, and I hope I can get rid of all of them very quickly, and I can get them all shipped out before I have to leave for the holidays and all that kind of good stuff. One final thing. What do we have? We have 4 episodes of GameFace left and Game of the Year, I think.
Maybe.
Sounds about right. Because I'll be leaving for the holidays around
4.
December 19th to head back to the East Coast to see family.
That's 4.
So we'll have 4 and then room for a Game of the Year, or just 4 total?
If you want to keep it on Tuesday, no.
So just 4 total?
Yeah, there's 4 Tuesdays left between now and the 19th.
Okay. So maybe only 4 total, which would be 3 regular episodes and our Game of the Year, where we also go over the fantasy leagues. So we'll go over Matt and I's league that he and I do. We'll also do the fantasy challenge, which I have not checked in on lately to see who's leading that.
I think you're still ahead.
No, I mean the fantasy challenge that everybody participates in, where we give out prizes and stuff.
Also, it should be noted that next week's show
may not be Tuesday, right?
May not be Tuesday because I get my booster shot Monday.
Okay, so it all depends on how you're feeling.
Depending on side effects. I'm also willing, even if I'm feeling bad, but I'm functional, I'd be willing to like Zoom.
Okay,
and figure that out like we used to.
Okay, okay. We'll talk about it leading up to it and after you get your shot and see how you're feeling and everything. It seems like it's a mixed bag as always. Some people get it, feel nothing. Some people feel a little groggy.
Like the boosters have been very different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like people I know that have had no side effects before, had horrible ones this time. People that had bad side effects, they got nothing this time.
Yeah.
My second shot knocked me out for a couple days, but
I felt nothing from either. So who knows what'll happen with the booster? Yeah. I can't get mine until January, I think. So I still have some time to wait. I wouldn't mind getting it before I flew and went home and was around people for the holidays.
I mean, mine was in March, so I'm due, and I want to get it done by the time, before I do Christmas stuff. But
yep.
So it was also just finding a place that didn't interfere with other things I also had to do. Like, you got to find, basically got to find 3 days that don't smash up against something else. Yeah, so that was the closest I could get.
Yeah, new G4 launched today, by the way.
Yeah,
if you can find it.
I mean, I think it's on their YouTube channel and stuff. It's on a number of options. Like they posted a tweet, I think, that tells you all the different ways to get it.
Yep. And last night I played Halo Infinite with Shad Grimgravy. Only hardcore X-Play fans will know who Shad Grimgravy is.
Yeah.
Nobody knew on my Twitter because I tweeted it and I got no likes, no anything. People were just like, what the hell? Who's Shad Grimgravy? Google him or go on YouTube and search for him. In my opinion, one of the best characters we ever created on X-Play. And he ended up becoming a recurring guy. I did a big thing with him in Tokyo the one year. He was genius. Shocking. He's a great character. But anyway, G4 is up and running, which is awesome. It's always good to see more stuff like that, more outlets in our space, particularly on television. And they are on some Comcast cable networks. And they're going to be on Peacock, I believe, and a couple other places. But anyway, you can go to their Twitter page, and they have all that stuff listed there. Just keep in mind, maybe this weekend, maybe go and check out their stuff. We do have some friends that are working on stuff at G4 there, and we want them to do well, and we want you guys to support them if you can. So check it out. G4 is back up and back alive, which is amazing. I never thought I'd be saying that. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, I think we're ready. Listeved is asking, did we receive the bottles? We did, Listeved. We got the bottles that you shipped to us of your liquor. And I have one for Matt, I have one for me, I have one for Pactor, and then we have one extra one. I'll figure out someone special to give it to. But yes, we got it. So thank you for sending it. Let's see if we got any Twitch Prime here in the early going of the show. I just want to thank people on air if I can. AJ the Legend Watson, thank you. Karma Lounge, thank you. The Surly Mexican, thank you. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. Hope you're doing well, man. Yeah, AJ the Legend Watson, thank you for Twitch Prime. And I think that's it, nearly going. Which means...
There was a Dark Lord or something
really?
up there.
Metal Gear Jimmy, thank you for Twitch Prime. If any of you guys are waiting to do it right now so I can thank you guys on the show.
Dark Force.
Yeah, Dark Force 256, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1 for 37 months. That is amazing, man. Thank you. We got the Hype Train Level 2 emote coming at you. There you go, people. Another one added to our list of emotes. Yep. Okay, looks like we're ready to kick off episode 279. We're going to kick things off with the GTA trilogy. People are calling this, Matt, this year's Cyberpunk 2077. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think it's very fair to Cyberpunk 2077.
For the sake of how I have the B-roll split up, let's take these in sequential order. All three of these games, Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, were all PlayStation 2 games. And they have been definitely not remade.
No, they've been ported.
They're
Mostly
more
what happened was
than a...
They are remade in a way.
They're more than a remaster, but they're not a remake.
Like the assets were remade.
Yeah.
Nothing else seems to. But also, it's very hard to describe. Like, they did change some things, and a lot of the things they changed are like, why? But like, mostly
and
it's
so
visuals.
the stuff you're like, why not?
Yeah, mostly it's
not
visuals.
Change it? Yeah.
And some choices were made.
Yeah.
The HDR is broken.
How do you know if HDR is broken?
If you turn brightness all the way up and you still can't see anyone's face, the HDR is broken. And if you turn HDR off on your TV and you load it up and it looks fine, the HDR is broken.
Okay.
So to get it to, and I don't like having the HDR off on the TV because you do that universally and not just, I can't do it per thing, and the Xbox doesn't seem to do it per game.
My TV just senses it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in there, but it's all wrong. It's botched, is what I describe it as. Like, it's doing HDR, but it just doesn't work, so you have to turn it off somehow. The way I got around it is I turned on all three games, I turned the brightness all the way to max, and I turned the contrast all the way to nothing. And it mostly is visible at that point.
I don't have any problems on my LG CX in that way. But it automatically detects HDR. I don't have to turn it on or off. Like, it just senses it, and then it just switches into HDR on its own.
Right, but what I'm saying is the HDR on these remasters is broken. It's wrong.
I get that.
It's wrong.
Yeah. But you were saying like it's a pain because you had to like turn it on or off on your TV.
Yeah, so I have to turn off the auto detect on it. Like, so I have to make it so I have to force it to not do HDR on the GTA remasters. Basically, because the GTA remasters will automatically tell you to do that.
Yeah.
I guess you could probably do that. I tried to do it in the Xbox options, and it looked the same. It only changed the visual until if I turn the HDR option off on that input on my TV. Which also feels like a flaw in the game somehow. But basically I mean, if you leave it the way, like on default, like you can't see the characters' faces in the cutscenes. Like,
That's crazy.
It's disastrous, like bizarre. And then like, so that was like you're starting out like, that's a problem. Like, I don't remember that being a thing. And then very early on, you see that something's very wrong because it rains in the early cutscene of GTA 3 because it's during the where they break the prison transfer up and you escape. Yeah. And very quickly you realize, oh, this isn't right because the way they've done rain in these
all three of them
is to just sort of plaster a animated rain alpha on the front of the screen. Like, it doesn't interact with anything. It doesn't do it, and it doesn't.
It's just this thing that lays over the screen.
Yeah, and it doesn't even really rotate. Like, if you turn the camera, it doesn't really rotate the rain effect. It's just like watching a screensaver plastered over the game.
You can see it right here.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And if you go under a bridge, it's raining under the bridge.
And then if you in San Andreas, if you go swimming in like a lake or something, the rain texture or whatever that is behind the body of water.
It's so annoying.
It's bizarre.
It's like when you first look at it, you're like, "Oh, that looks pretty good," and then after like 5 seconds later, you're like, "Wait a minute, no,
because it's not. Look, it's not changing.
No,
it's just it doesn't change with the movement of the camera. It's just happening in front of all the other graphics.
It's just a filter laid over the screen.
It is. It's like the See, you can see it right there. It's like the old. It's like old cartoons where they didn't animate plaid, where like plaid or like someone with a certain suit texture. It wasn't like they would animate it on each frame. Like it was just like they're moving across like a plaid background.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
It's very weird. That's fun.
What, that weird thing that just came bouncing through the shot right
just debris.
Yeah. What are your impressions of Grand Theft Auto 3?
GTA 3 is a terrible game.
It is.
Like it really is.
It really is.
Like
it's almost unplayable anymore.
Yeah, it really it's amazing how like the first like 20.
And that's not the fault of this version of it either.
No, this is just like you're with the distance of 20 years and a lot of advancements and a huge influence that this game was. Like you play like the first 20 missions are just like drive here, do one thing for 5 seconds, kill a guy or
get back in the car, drive
back.
Yeah.
And it's just like the whole hook and the whole novelty was that it was an open world.
Which back then was a novelty.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But now it's just like,
Yeah.
Like there's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing here. And the story is very weak because the main character doesn't talk, and it's mostly just like stereotypes, screaming stereotypical like edgy things. Like one thing that really struck, having not played any of these in about 10 years, I would say, all 3 of these games are intensely juvenile.
Oh yeah.
Like in a way that like I always you always recognize but like it used to be part of the fun,
right?
And now it's just sort of embarrassing.
It's kind of cringy. Yeah.
Especially the radio stuff. The radio stuff is just like, oh wow,
it's not funny.
You thought that was cool. It was just like it's like listening to the guy in your friend group that you don't really like very much constantly quote South Park.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what this game is like.
But like the worst episodes of South Park.
like the satirical stuff, but he doesn't think that he thinks it's serious. Kind of thing.
It's just a very simple. I mean, it's the most simple open world game you're going to play because it was basically the first.
Yeah, it was. It broke the ground. It broke the formula, and like, there's an element of like historical significance to it, but like, I did not get more than a couple hours into this.
It's hard.
Like, it's enough of this.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, we've played these games already.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel the need to have to play huge chunks of these to be able to talk about them because I know the games. I've finished them already. In some cases, I finished San Andreas at least twice.
I mean, you can see how dark this is even in this. I mean, it's daytime. This is
look at the sky.
It's 7 a.m. It's supposed to be daytime, but those streets. I mean, New York can get kind of dark like that, but like not when the sun's up like overhead. Like it's.
I will say this.
You can't see what you're doing. The headlights are on at 7:30.
I will say this though. Generally, this game looks way better in this version.
Oh, of the three, this gets the biggest
leap.
Visual impression because it was so visually primitive.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, look, just the fact that the characters have fingers now.
Right. Instead of mitten hands.
But like the transition to the kind of the more animated art style is very, very case by case. Let's say like some characters look good, others you wonder what game they're from. That's more of a problem actually in Vice City. I would say Vice City has the biggest gaps between like main character models I've seen. Like there's moments where like it's one thing if it's like just an NPC walking by on the street or something, but there's scenes in Vice City where I'm just like, this guy is a mission giver, and you made him look like that. Like I have to look at this guy.
Yeah.
GTA 3 also has like a weird. I mean, it's not weird. It's actually very explainable. But I can't hear what people are saying a lot of the time because the audio quality is so low because it's such an old game. I had to turn subtitles on
to drive without like arrows telling you which direction to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean that is one big improvement is that there is GPS now on the map. Like that was never there. Although it's a little intermittent.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't work always.
If you have more than one objective in a mission, it won't do that.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to go into the map and put a custom marker down if you want that. Or you can do the old school thing, just sort of like brute force your way through the city until you find where you're going, which isn't that hard in these games. The maps are fairly simple.
Yeah, the mission objectives in GTA 3 are just so rudimentary.
Yeah. To the point that it's confusing sometimes. Like, oh, you just want me to do that? Okay. Oh, I'm done.
It can't be that simple, right?
No, it is.
No, it is.
It absolutely is.
But at the same time, as I said, I do think it is, of the three, the game that receives the biggest bump and the biggest improvement. But you're also starting at a much lower level than you were with the other two games. It needed the most improvement.
It starts the furthest behind the starting line.
Right. And it comes the closest to ultimately winning the race.
Yeah. Also, I would argue that it's the one that people care the least about.
Do you think so?
Of the three. I mean, it's historically very important, but I think more people are fans of Vice City and San Andreas.
Yeah. I think a lot of people didn't play this. I think it might end up being like initially the most played of the collection, and then people will play it for about an hour and be like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
It's just a little pretty. I always liked in the end, back in the day, I always liked this better than Vice City because I didn't feel Vice City improved on this to any great degree.
Yeah.
Playing Vice City now, just the fact that Tommy Vercetti as a character helps a lot. And it does, Vice City does suffer from the same sort of like bland
because
mission
GTA 3,
design.
people may not realize the guy was just like nameless.
Yeah, nameless guy with no voice.
He ended up getting the name Claude somehow.
Yeah, the fandom named him Claude.
Yeah, but he never had a name in the game.
Yeah,
he was just this anonymous thug, basically.
He does show up in.
Which game is it?
San Andreas.
Yeah.
He's a racer.
Right.
In the San Andreas street racing things.
Yeah. And let's move on to Vice City. You kind of segued nicely to that on your own. What are your thoughts after going back to this?
I mean, it's easier to play than 3 now, just because like they get to the more complicated missions faster. But I will it still suffers from the whole. It's so juvenile and it's such a transparent sort of like remake of Scarface by people who thought Scarface was good. Scarface is fun, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But good.
I enjoyed it as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of, and like the other thing is just like how overacted everything is, which really hits hard in this one.
I wonder playing this if it's intentional, if it's supposed to be like a caricature.
I think some of it is. I think also like you can. Some of it is just the animation of the characters, which like you can only do so much when you couldn't move people's hands and stuff.
Yeah.
And so some of that is just like kind of pantomime. It's like watching a stage play sometimes because you just have to. They're making it really big so it gets across what you're trying to do. But once you've got kind of a more nuanced look to it, it doesn't really work because everybody just seems like they're crazy. Like what's his name, Tony or whoever, yelling at Tommy early on is just like, what are you doing? Especially because like everything was recorded separately and like sometimes the performances don't seem to match the tone of each other, and like that's more noticeable now that we've got such higher production values than we did back then. What's
crazy is how quickly this game was released after GTA 3.
Yeah, it was like, what was it, like a year and a half or
something?
Yep. I mean, it should have been an expansion pack. It's just basically that's all it is.
Still, that was a lot of work to get done in a very short period.
I mean, a lot of content was made. They didn't really improve any of the technical stuff. Although I will say that the most irritating technical flaw that was introduced in Vice City that wasn't in 3 as much is still here, which is that cars continually fade into existence on the street when you're trying to drive.
I mean, I'm guessing that was coded in. It's not just as easy as.
A lot of people have been like, kind of like ripping these in terms of like, oh, they were so lazy, and so clearly they did not put the effort that needed to be put into for the Rockstar or Take-Two, whoever, did not fund these and give them the time that was needed to make something that was lived up to it. Look how dark that is. Look how weird that looks.
Yeah. Also, we should mention the games have lost their filters.
Yeah, there's no like the GTA 3 had a blue
weird
filter,
green-blue filter.
Yeah, it had like a bluish filter, and this had a pink filter. Beyond just the neon.
The neon, yeah.
And San Andreas had like an orange filter, and those are all gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
In a move reminiscent of like when the Silent Hill remasters removed the fog.
Yeah.
Which is an error. And San Andreas has it the worst because San Andreas used fog and mist and clouds to a great effect because LA, especially in the early 90s, was full of smog.
That's what was the story about
the
LA.
Haze and that. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why it's so orange filtered, is because everything looks like that.
It still looks like that every once in a while.
Every once in a while you get it, and like it's gone. It's all gone. There are no clouds in San Andreas anymore.
Really? And I didn't notice that.
No, they're all gone. Like the there's some in like the skybox, but there used to be actual clouds. And one of the things you'll see that most noticeably is in the mission where you skydive out of a plane. you used to skydive out over clouds, and when you come through the clouds, you're over the city, and you parachute down.
Yeah.
Now there's no clouds, so you can just look down and see the city, and you realize that the plane isn't moving. It's just sitting.
That's funny.
So like the clouds were there to like prevent you from seeing that, and now you just dive down, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, Vice City was really kind of a half step towards what GTA was going to become.
Yeah. San Andreas is the only one of the three that I think has a story with characters that like actually become people
that I cared
in any
about.
way.
Yeah. It was the first GTA game that actually where you felt some empathy towards the protagonist.
Yeah, like CJ is a good character. His the Grove Street families are like you understand why he stays to there's a history there that comes across. You understand who each of them are more or less pretty quick. Like it's a good introduction to his world, and then the game continually expands and expands and expands beyond that until like Carl's to the point that like you can barely remember when his whole world was just that cul-de-sac on Grove Street, and it's like it's a really effective progression.
I feel like the culture around the game too, LA, NWA, all that stuff was something that people when it came out could relate to, because those people were on MTV, and it was just like this thing that was pervasive, and everybody knew about it. Whereas like Vice City, it's like, okay, we're talking Miami Vice. Is that what it's spoofing? Like,
do 80s Miami?
Did people even remember what that was at that point?
Yeah, I mean, they did, but it was one of the earliest 80s throwback, like really hard in media things. This was a little more immediate, I think, for a lot of the audience. Also, this was fast. Like this was 2004. Yeah, it was only two years after Vice City.
Yeah, they cranked out all these games in like 4 or 5 years. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, 3 was 2001, and then this was 2004. I remember playing this to do. We did a big day at G4 of everything. And like it was like the whole day was just San Andreas stuff, and all the footage from that was me captured. Like I played this game for like 9 hours straight, and I would just record stuff, and people would come in and say, "I need more," and I just throw a tape to them, and they go and do it. It was, and I think we were using like a copy that like we didn't get sent in time, so like someone brought a copy back from like the Mexico City E3, and like we're using that, and we're like, what if they send it
like a bootleg?
Kinda, yeah. And like so like and like then we're like, well, what happens? And it's like, well, if we get the retail, because we got our early retail from a local store, I'm like, if the save loads up on the retail version, I'm saying we're good.
Yeah, and, so it did.
It did. But it was. It was like nothing else. It was the culmination of everything, all the promise you saw in 3 and Vice City. And I think, this is the only one I have continued to play, despite the fact that yes, all these games are broken and weird, and their choices are poor a lot of the time. I haven't had any crashing really. Or anything.
I haven't either. I mean, I didn't play them that much.
No, I'm playing on Series X. They all run pretty well. The graphical again looks
San
really
Andreas is
weirdly
on
dark.
Game Pass, right? For free.
Yeah, San Andreas is on Game Pass. If you're gonna play one of them, play that one.
And that's the one that matters at this point. It is odd that only one of them ended up there, which shows that
it's weird that the best one ended up there. Microsoft probably chose.
Right, and probably had to put down a big chunk of money.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, the game is not what everyone had hoped, unfortunately.
I mean, this is the closest to okay, but like there's still tons of weird stuff. And the rain effect in this one is worse. It's thicker. Like it's more busy. Like the rain.
They all look the same to me. It looked like they used the same thing.
They are using the same like type of effect, but the rain effect on this is, at least the times it has rained while I played this game, it is the drops have been more thicker, at least more bunched together, and like I can't see anything. Like there have been times when I had to just stop playing and wait for it to stop raining.
Through the rain
because I can't see through the rain.
That's crazy.
So, and the rain in these games used to be really cool,
right? Well, for the time, yeah.
For the time, yeah.
So everyone thinks that these are terrible, but my question is, are these still not the best versions of these games? Because they have updated the shooting, and I would argue even the vehicle handling feels like it's been tweaked a little bit.
I don't notice a lot of the PC versions. The old PC versions with mods, like user-created mods, is better than this.
They're better?
Definitely. The shooting in this is a little weird. Like
It's better than it was.
it's better than the vanilla PS2 stuff. It's not better than the old Xbox and PC versions.
Really?
Especially not with mouse aiming. Like this is, I had to turn it was better once I turned the auto aim off because that was just nonsense. But like it still has like a weird it feels like only every third bullet sometimes hits when you're shooting the hit scan stuff.
Yeah.
And I think something's up, at least in San Andreas. Like Carl takes damage real fast in this in a way that I don't remember him dying so quickly.
What struck me the most about San Andreas was how far advanced it was from these other two games that weren't that far away.
Yeah, which is something I've always like hammered on about San Andreas, and people like weirdly dismiss sometimes, like as though San Andreas was not a huge leap. It's like San Andreas added swimming, it added hopping over things, it added like modifying stuff. It added being able to work out and get fat is not all that useful really, but it added all the things you think about, when it comes to like how you can design what the character looks like. Vice City introduced like changing clothes, but this is the one that lets you choose different shirt, different pants, different like it went
your
in,
haircut.
Yeah, it went in hard about choosing like tattoos
and you go visit the people and they're actual people with personalities.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how much this advanced compared to the other two.
Yeah, and it also helps that Carl is Carl is the first GTA protagonist to kind of realize that his situation is stupid. Like he's like he knows that the people he's working for are lunatics most of the time, but he's like, all right, homie, that's what I got to do. You know, like he's not buying it.
Yeah,
and that kind of really works.
So Matt, back to my question though. So you said, okay, these versions that you can't get anymore are better than this, but of ones, I mean, I guess they've taken them all off the market now, right? You can only buy this. Is that correct?
They pulled them off Steam. Yeah, I mean, if you already own them, you can play them. But you can't buy them now.
Huh. Okay.
And then of course they did the thing where like they left the cut music tracks in the code, and people found them, and then Rockstar pulled them from their launcher on PC. So people who bought them on PC couldn't play them for days.
Jeez.
Like you paid for the game and it disappeared from your from your Rockstar launch. Like that was it. Like until they fixed. And then people also found the hot coffee code is still in there.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. What the heck, man?
These were very straight ports that had to be basically kludged to, because like I'm sure this was not an easy job, because this is probably real kludgy code that just, God knows what they had to do to get these things to run on the PS2.
Yeah.
And it's all proprietary stuff, and I'm sure a lot of the plugins, a lot of the third-party stuff they were using for various like functions and sound, like I'm sure all that doesn't exist. A lot of those companies gone out of business.
Yeah. It's true.
So what do you do? It's it's probably not as bad as trying to pull apart Red Dead Redemption 1 and figure out how to port that, but like it can't be much better.
Yeah.
And they gave it to like what seems to be like their mobile team. It just I'm
feels
sure
like a cash in.
It feels like a cash in. It feels like these games were not given frankly the respect they deserve.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, honestly, I think it's the lack of respect for the consumer and the fans that strikes me the hardest.
Yeah, and you got some balls calling this the definitive edition,
right? Yeah.
Like, wow.
So all that said,
that's what you did. Like, hopefully they fix some of it, but
yeah,
like you don't get a second chance on that first impression. And CD Projekt Red can tell you about that.
Yep, it's too late. So all that said, is it worth $60?
No, not in its current state. Like if they fix this thing up and like get the visuals better and fix the crashing on some of the platforms, fix the performance on the last gen systems, like they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like people are maybe overreacting a little bit.
I mean, does it deserve a 0.5 out of 10 on Metacritic user score? No. Like, I played way worse than this.
I feel like people are maybe taking it a little personally. And look,
yeah, but at the same time, it's like
I would take it a little personal because if you're a fan of Rockstar, this is kind of a smack it to the face. Like,
yeah,
they're abusing their fans and trying to get something, into the fiscal quarter for the holiday shopping season, knowing very well that a lot of people are going to buy it sight unseen. It's dirty, but I also don't think that the games are as bad as maybe some people may think that they are.
No, they're not like unplayable bad,
right?
But they are like not what they should have been.
Yeah, agreed. I'm interested if any of you guys in chat have bought this and how you guys feel about it. If you feel like you were ripped off, if you're okay with the purchase. I don't think anyone's going to say, wow, I can't believe I got these 3 awesome versions for $60.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Digital Foundry is, as Sneaky points out, Digital Foundry is saying that these are the mobile versions.
They are the mobile
like
versions.
Up-resed,
with
basically.
a new
ported
skin. Yeah.
Which explains why the shooting's so weird.
Yeah, that does explain it. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, Vincent, we did mention.
And they
San
didn't
Andreas
fix any of the
on
little
Game Pass.
like there was always a quirk of San Andreas where like there's cutscenes that cut out before they're done. Like lines get cut off. The last line of a cutscene will get cut off. Or like there's a scene early on where they're playing basketball and Big Smoke clearly goes up for a layup and it cuts as he's jumping up for it. And like I remember that from the old PS2 version and I was like, that's so weird that they didn't fix it. Like it's like this is an opportunity to like fix some of these weird little things. And they just didn't.
I'm wondering if the remote control missions I guess they probably didn't do anything to it.
No, I'm sure
they've got it to work, and they're like, "That's good enough."
No,
yeah. So don't get me wrong. I'm not praising this.
Yeah,
I don't want Rockstar to think this is okay.
No, there are some. The GPS is great. That there's a you can get a line on the map tells you where to go. The fact that there's checkpoints now and autosave. You don't have to go back to your house, your safe house to save every time. If you die in a mission, you get a checkpoint most of the time.
Yep.
There's
quality of life stuff
here and there. I mean, I do believe they could have used a rewind feature, especially GTA 3 and Vice City.
Yeah.
And I guess San Andreas, like you could use a rewind feature on that damn Big Smoke mission.
Oh yeah.
With the train. But like, it's just it
feels like a cash in.
Definitely, and like the fact that it's 60. Like if you're going to charge $60 for these things need to be airtight. And they're not.
Yeah, it sounded like a good deal when we first heard
about
it.
If they were good quality remasters, absolutely it'd be a great deal.
But not so much. Yeah.
At best, I'd just say get San Andreas off Game Pass and play that.
Yeah.
If you absolutely must play.
It's the best of the three.
A 17-year-old PS2 game instead of some of the other things that are out right now.
Especially right now, because tons of games are coming out, and there's so much other stuff to play. So there you go. That's the GTA Trilogy Remastered Definitive Edition. The remastered part isn't in there, I think.
No, it's just called GTA Trilogy Definitive
Edition. Yeah. And
it isn't.
You say no purchase.
No, I say this is a wait and see for sure.
Yeah, and I don't have faith that they're going to patch this stuff out and fix it.
They've made some comments in that direction, but who knows how long it'll take.
I think they'll patch it up enough so they can put it back on sale for the PC version back on sale.
Yeah.
And then after that, hands off. That'd be my guess.
I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to patch out the Michael Jackson songs from the code and call it a day, probably.
Yeah. And get rid of Hot Coffee, probably.
Yeah, like...
How do you leave that in there?
Because you're afraid if you take it out, it'll break something. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that...
you remember that Rockstar tried to act like it was a hacker who had hacked this game back then?
Even though it's like, there's like actual room... Like, it was clear... I mean... There was modeled furniture in those rooms. Yeah. Like, you made that shit, guys. Come on.
Oh, man. Crazy.
So anyway, never forget, for all their edgy and for all their rebellious, like attitude, like image, Rockstar's always been a bunch of cowards.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Like, they're afraid to actually own up to the stuff that they
do wrong. Yeah, or if they get something wrong.
At least the South Park guys stand up for their dumb shit.
That's true. That's a good point.
They have a similar sort of like edgy for the sake of because I can say it and you can't stop me sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the South Park guys at least will stand up and own that stuff.
Yeah.
They won't apologize for it necessarily, but they'll be like, yeah, that was us. We did that.
We did that. Yeah.
Bite me.
At least they won't try to blame it on somebody else.
Yeah, whereas Rockstar's like, oh, it must have been hackers. It's like, guys.
It is funny, though. Back then, the general population was so ignorant that a lot of people believed it. They're like, oh, okay, hackers. Now, you could never get away with that excuse now.
Well, now also no one would care about that the hot coffee.
Well, hot coffee, they'd be like, what do you mean? They have clothes on? Maybe it was a hacker.
Yeah, it looks so bad. Maybe it was.
Clothes on. All right, so anyway, there you go. We'll wrap it up. GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition. I think both of us say stay away. I think Matt's a little more negative on it than I am. I think if you've never played these games and you're interested in it, $40 I would probably pay for this and be okay with it.
Never gonna drop that for you. They don't discount stuff.
Yeah, well they do, but it takes a while. Like, you've been able to buy GTA 5 for
Right,
2 years now for $15 or $20.
Right. Well, first it's gotta go back on their store.
Right. Yeah. Good luck with that one.
And they gotta fix. I mean, the PC version runs terribly.
Yeah.
So even GTA 3, it's just bizarre.
It is bizarre. The whole thing is weird. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that we just discussed in last week's show, because From Software had put up a big gameplay trailer that showed off a lot of gameplay for Elden Ring. And then right before I came in, I had got an invite to its closed network test, which, as it turns out, basically ended up being like the whole game. Like, it really wasn't the whole game, but it was a huge chunk of the game. I think I read somewhere that they estimated that it was probably actually like 1/10 of the final game. And if that is the case, Elden Ring is going to be gigantic, because there were like 10 bosses in this and like 4 or 5 mini bosses, like just huge swatches of land that you could discover and uncover. And so I played it. I was lucky enough to get an early code to get in on the closed network test. And I've spent about, I think, a total of 2.5 hours. I played an hour that I recorded for a hangout, which has been published for our patrons. And that was just me coming in completely raw, didn't know anything, playing the first hour of it. And then I continued to play another like hour and a half after that. Matt, have you watched a lot of media around this at all?
Not too much.
Yeah, I'm surprised you
Why
managed
would I
to
wanna see
resist
something
temptation.
I want to play?
Okay. I mean, I still watch gameplay for stuff that I'm going to play.
I have no interest in knowing any of this before I play it.
Okay. So do you want to walk out of the room for the discussion?
No, I don't care.
I was really leaning on you asking me a lot of questions about this, because I figured...
Well, here's the thing. I don't have any questions about this game because it's Dark Souls in the open world.
As it turns out...
Like, I knew what this was the first time I saw it, and you didn't really believe me, but I know what I'm looking at, and it looks like you kind of ran into the same wall.
As it turns out, that's exactly what it is. It is open world Dark Souls.
Yeah. You could call this Dark Souls 4 if it took place in the same world. I'm glad it doesn't, because I think we've mined that universe for everything it's worth. It's good to do new things, but this is the same game.
Yeah. You can see I called it in the lower third, Breath of Sekiro Souls. I think that's probably...
I'm glad it's using the Sekiro's combat lessons and stuff, but there is nothing I look at in this game and am confused about.
Yeah. And you're right, you shouldn't be. If you've played a lot of their games, I'll say this, Matt, it confused the living hell out of me. So, for the most part, I do not miss that they have removed instruction booklets from games. Because most games, it's like the tutorials are great, and they teach you sometimes they're too much. If anything, a lot of people complain anymore that, like, games hold your hand. Like, Zelda's been accused of that a lot the last couple of years. Or this is a game that could absolutely use an instruction manual. It would have made my life so much easier. So,
I mean, remember Demon Souls the deluxe version came with this giant strategy.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Actually, you're right.
Extra booklet because they knew
this game needs it. Especially for people like me who haven't played a lot of From Software's games. So there's a lot of things where you would have played this, Matt, and you just been like, oh, I need to do this.
It's this.
I need to do that. Yeah. That's how it's worked in Dark Souls 2 or in Demon Souls, or it worked that way in Sekiro or Bloodborne or what. I have none of that frame of reference. So I am just relying 100% on the game to teach me and show me what I need to know.
Always a problem with the From Software game.
What?
Relying on it to teach you how things work.
It's awful in that regard.
Have to, that's sort of. I mean, the fandom considers that part of the appeal is like discovering these things, but there's a fine line between discovery and just pure frustration.
Well, for example, when the game starts, they mention that there's a tutorial area, like a cave that you can go to where you'll learn the ropes of the game. I could not find it. You start down in this
that's
dungeon.
So on brand.
You start down in this dungeon. It's pitch black. And I'm running around in the dark trying to find the way out. I find the way out, and you come up through kind of the catacombs, as they call it. And you open that big door, and you go into the open world. And I never found the cave. I walked around outside. I never found the cave, the tutorial cave. Now, luckily, there's a location not that far from where the network test starts that you go to, and you meet the merchant for the first time. And there's like a blacksmith anvil there for upgrading your weapons and stuff. And you do learn some stuff there. And there's messages that people can drop down like wherever they want. And some of those are very informative, but literally after like 8 minutes, Matt, there are so many. They're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's just hundreds and hundreds every like square mile. And it's like, so which ones do I read? Which ones do I not read?
None of them.
None of them. That's what happened. After like 5 minutes, I'm like, I'll waste a day just reading all these notes that people have dropped down onto the ground.
In the big area, you got to just forget it. Like, it's just most of it's just people being stupid.
Yeah, and so I have limited experience with these games. I've played them a little bit, and one thing I do know is that it's very possible to end up tangling with an enemy you have no business tangling with yet because you're not powerful enough, you don't have the right gear, or whatever. And so,
unless you're supposed to tangle with the enemy, you're not supposed to get it.
But you don't know. And so, like, as soon as you come out and you're in an open world, there's a dude on horseback. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, dude, there's no way I should fight that guy right now. But I was like, but wait, he's here. So is that from software telling me that I need to fight the guy right away? Like, you start to go through these, like, mental gymnastics. You're like, why am I doing this? Like, why doesn't the game just tell me, like, what I should be doing? Or give me some kind of a sign that's not buried somewhere. So a lot of my time playing this was struggling with stuff that people who play a lot of From Software games were probably just like, dude, do this, do that, do that. I don't know that. I haven't played these games. So the first thing I would say is the onboarding in this game is essentially identical to From Software's other games, meaning that there is very little. The game assumes that you know a lot already, or I guess it assumes you're going to spend hours and hours walking around reading. I don't know. Like, so there was a lot of fumbling for me. And I will say this, like, a lot of the enemies, when I decided to actually fight them, they went down pretty easy. Like, the rank and file, even these bats, like, they're a little annoying because they dodge really well, but literally 3 shots and they go down. Most of the enemies out in the open world, few shots, they go down. And that was pleasant. It was nice to be able to actually do something in a From Software game without the threat of dying. But as soon as I went to tackle anything beyond the rank and file enemies, it was just a slaughter. 2 shots and you're dead. That was when I was like, okay. And what we talked about last week was maybe the open world will provide an opportunity for people like me, and there's a lot of people like me who kind of feel the same way about these games, to still be able to do something and accomplish something out in the open world without having to kind of take on these enemies that are just going to destroy you in a couple of shots. That turns out to be true. It absolutely is true. But I would also say it's not especially fun or compelling. Because once you've kind of faced an enemy once, you pretty much know how to handle that enemy. There's not a ton of enemy variety out in the open world, at least based upon what I played. That may change over time. And again, I only played like 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. And didn't make it. Some of the videos I've seen of people, I'm like, where the hell is that? Like, I don't even know how they got there. But like, you get to this one point.
And people played 50, 60 hours.
I know, it's insane. Which I don't know how they did that, because the way this was set up was there were like 5 very specific sessions you could play. And they're 3 hours long. And that's it. Like, when the 3 hours was up, they cut you off. Like, I don't know how these people managed to play that much.
Just did it over and over, I guess.
But they shut the servers down.
Oh.
So when I first tried to play this...
account, probably.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. So when I first tried to play this, it was like, servers are down, whatever. So I emailed the PR person who had sent me the code, and then she sent me the list of the sessions. It was like, this is when the servers are going to be up. And it was accurate and correct. But... total, you could have played it like 20 hours if you hit every session for 3 hours. I don't know how people played it as long as they did. It's amazing the parts of the game that they got to. Because as it turns out, almost the whole game was in this network test. And I think maybe they were using the 3-hour buff limit to keep people from maybe accessing some of this stuff. Because some of these people got, like, literally fought like 10 or 15 bosses before this network test was closed down. So anyway... the moment that I finally fought something that was, the guy on horseback, he killed me twice, 4 blows total to kill me twice. I get to this one part where there's a big gate, and you walk through the gate and you start going up this hill, and a giant like drops down from the sky, and then there's like 3 archers on each side of the walkway who start pelting you with arrows. I'm just like, what? Like, what am I supposed to do? How do you survive this? Somebody online was like, oh, you're supposed to get on the horse and just ride past that. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? Like, how do you know this stuff? Do you just keep trying stuff until something happens and works? Like,
in some cases, yeah. In that case, like, you can't do anything against the arrows, so if I have a horse, I would try the horse, yeah. Unless there's, like, a clear way up to where the archers are.
Yeah. And people have been great, talking to me about the game and trying to explain stuff to me. And it's, it's the same conversation that I had when Bloodborne came out or when Dark Souls 3 came out. And I tried to play that, and I keep giving it chances. And people always keep telling me the same stuff. I'm like, I know, but, like, how do you know that? Like, armor. And, like, for instance, I get the horse. Finally. And you get the horse so randomly. It's like the fourth, like, bonfire that you activate. The chick shows up and gives you the horse, basically. The girl that was in the cinematic earlier with, like, the hood or whatever. She shows up and gives you the horse.
Melinda or whatever.
Yeah, Melinda or whatever her name is. And I was like, cool, I got the horse. And somehow, like, I think my wife walked into the room just as that cinematic was finishing, and I, like, closed it out. And I don't know if they told me how to summon the horse, and I missed it, but I did not know how to summon the horse. So this started a 10-minute thing where I'm going through the menus on Google searching just to figure out how to assign the horse to the D-pad so I could summon the horse whenever. It took me 10 minutes just to figure that out. And that's how I feel this game is, and in all honesty, all From Software's games are like that. Like, it just, they're so opaque, and it feels like a lot of people are like, man, I wish I was sitting beside you while you were playing this, or I wish, we were co-oping together. Like, I can't think of any other games in the industry where that has to happen, where you have to have, like, a guide with you. Either you have that, or you spend copious amounts of time, like, searching message boards and, like, whatever. I get some people like that stuff. I just don't have the time to do it to play a video game. I just don't. So I think what a lot of people are wondering is, okay, I haven't maybe been a huge fan of playing these games. I've liked what they look like. I like the creature designs. I like the aesthetic of them. But actually playing them has kind of turned me off. They're wondering, like, is this different? And I do think it is different. I think just the fast travel itself makes a big difference, because there's tons of fast travel points, Matt. Like, within 300 yards of where you start this demo, there are 6 fast travel points. And it does seem like if you fast travel, everything respawns, but that's fair, because once you fast travel, you can go to the merchant and get your flasks replenished or whatever. So it makes sense that if you were going to do that they'd be like, okay, well, we're just going to repopulate the world with the enemies again. And I'm okay with that. But learning how to do things in this game, very, very challenging. And in some ways, I don't know if I ever would figure it out on my own. Because the other problem is that while you're trying to figure all this stuff out, it's so punishing. It's like, okay, let me try. Oh, I'm dead. Like, I go through that all the time playing these games. It's like, oh, what if I do dead? Go.
That's part of these games. Like, you have to learn that dying doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's just part of it.
Yeah.
Like, early on, you're like, oh my God, I lost all those souls, and I'm never going to get all those souls back. It's like, but then you're like, oh, it takes me like 5 minutes to get that much now.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I stopped going back and getting my souls after a while.
A lot of people
They're
do
called
that
runes in
after a
this.
while.
I was just like, dude, this is a demo anyway. It doesn't carry over to the final game. Like, I just...
Yeah, eventually you learn to let go, and, like, there's things where it's like, okay, I got to get past this boss. I just have to ignore, how many times I'm going to die, and eventually this is what I have to work with, and there's a way through it. Like, because that's part of the thing is I think you are constantly looking for the solution. There are no solutions. There are multiple solutions. You can approach it however you want. Some of them are easier than others, but there's no one way through most Dark Souls situations.
And I found even more of the stuff where there's just the dude hanging out in the corner when you walk out the hallway, and it attacks you from behind, and even like once you go into the dungeons, which is where it really kind of turns into normal Dark Souls, where it feels like it's just another Dark Souls game. Once you go into the dungeons, it's like you get in there and like there's one hallway that has fire, and like I don't have a sprint yet, or at least I don't know how to sprint yet. I can't figure out where the sprint is in this game. I don't know. I mean, I looked at the control scheme.
Usually it's hold circle.
Oh, really?
Or B or whatever the outside.
I never figured it out.
Is.
And it's not in the options when you look at the control scheme with the little schematic of the controller. Nothing says sprint.
Usually it's the same button as roll. You just hold it instead of tap it.
Yeah. I will say this, Matt. The stamina bar in this did not bother me.
Yeah, it seems like dodge rolling doesn't take as much stamina as
it's
the other
very
games.
generous. Like I never found myself like running out of stamina and being like, oh crap, and like trying to get away from an enemy or whatever. It seems like they have tweaked that, and I'm a fan of that. And I think that's a good change for people like me.
You should definitely block more.
Yeah, I figured that after a while. Someone also told me that there's like a counter that you can do with blocking that you end up just using over and over, and you can kind of walk through most enemies if you use that. And I did start to figure that out eventually on my own, and then other people mentioned it to me.
It would have been good to know how to run there.
Yeah, and so I get in this dungeon. I don't know how to sprint, and I get stuck in these hallways where there's fire, and the only way to make it to the safe spot is to be able to sprint. So it's like they let you in here, even though you don't have the capabilities to make it through. Like, that's what annoys me about
You do have the capability to make it through. You know you can sprint.
You can?
Of course you can sprint.
I don't know that you can. I think you have to learn it or get it somewhere.
That would be very out of character for these games.
Maybe someone in chat can tell me how to use dash.
Dash, not sprint.
Hold circle, people are saying.
Hold circle, yeah.
Okay. That would have been nice to know. If you go into the options look at the control scheme, it does not tell you how to dash or sprint, which is really bizarre.
It doesn't tell you what the circle does?
It says roll. Yeah. And that is right.
I'm going to be looking at the tutorial messages on this whenever I get my hands on it, because I'm curious now.
Yeah. I think there might be a shot of it in this B-roll somewhere. If there is, we'll pause it and look at it. But I never figured that out.
Because every one of the games has given you, at least early on, like some kind of thing that says, usually it's the same screen. It says press circle to roll, hold circle to sprint.
You're forgetting, though. I never found the tutorial. I never could find it. It's some cave somewhere. I still don't know where it is. I never found it. I don't know where it is. And maybe in that, they teach you about it. I don't know.
I figured they would in that kind of that dark hallway you wake up in.
You'd think they would just tell you right there before you have to sprint through the fire.
Well, no, because that's later. You probably want to be able to learn to sprint before that. I would imagine, because
I didn't need it before then.
The very beginning, yeah, but it can still be a useful tool. In the beginning of where you're running through that kind of underground, before you realize, that first section where you got to skip it, where you want to show somebody what the game looks like, because that just looks like Dark Souls 4 as opposed to like the big open world. Like, I would have figured that was the tutorial section where they teach you kind of the basics in there, just like they've always done with all their other games. And sometimes you got to, a lot of times, like several of them have done it where it's like, to get the tutorial messages, you have to read the messages on the floor. So like early on, the messages on the floor are just From Software tutorial messages, and when you get out in the main world, then you get all the spam from the other players.
This is what I was talking about, though, how people who have played a lot of these games know this stuff. I don't know it. So how does the game impart that?
Chat's saying it is the dark hallway where you start.
You just need to drop down a hole in that dark cave. Okay. I looked around. I couldn't find it. I cut that out of this B-roll because it was boring. But I literally walked around the edge of everything I could see in that dark hole that I was in and never found the cave. I don't know. But again, it's like these are things that veterans know, and I think that they just assume that everybody should know it. But you don't.
I have no doubt that there is an actual instruction in there somewhere, but
I missed it somehow. Maybe it's just amidst all the other stuff that I'm trying to learn at the same time. It just gets all mixed in together and lost. I don't know. I personally would really, because people started sending me DMs on Sifted talking about this crazy crap that you need to get that helmet of the God Sunder, but I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? I don't know. It's like you're talking another language. They assume that I know what any of this stuff is. I also wish, why isn't the flask that replenishes your health just called a health flask? And why isn't the one that replenishes your magic just called the magic flask? Why does it gotta be called the Emerald Dragon of the Slurry Sloop? I'm like, dude, just call it the health flask. I don't get it. They intentionally make it so opaque for no good reason. It's like they're trying to create this club of people that only they know. I don't understand the idea behind it. I understand more the enemies that take you down in 2 hits than the other stuff. The hiding, things that you need to know to be able to play the game stuff. That makes way less sense to me than just making it really difficult. But and I think, again, to go back to what I think everyone's big question is going to be is, hey, if I'm like you, Shane, and I have yet to have a From Software game really resonate with me, will I like this? I will say this. I do think you will like it more than prior ones. Because I played this for 3 hours. I think the only From Software game I've played for more than 3 hours, no, there's two. The first Dark Souls, because I did Shane versus Dark Souls for a while, and Bloodborne. I played both of those more than 3 hours. The other ones, I've just always bounced right off of. So this one, I have spent more time with. And to what we were talking about last week, you can spend a lot of time out in the open world, just fighting rank and file enemies, finding loot. One thing that I thought was cool is if you kill like an entire, and maybe this is something that's been in all their games, I just don't know. But if you kill like an entire group of enemies, it will refill your flasks. Is that a part of all their other games?
No, that's new.
Okay. But I thought that was cool. I'm like, okay. And I just discovered that on my own. I killed 3 bats. And when the last one went down, it's like, your flasks have been refilled. I'm like, cool. I like that. And thank you for telling me. It would have been nice to know that beforehand, because I almost walked off after killing 2 of them and not killing the third one. But at least they told me after I did it. Like, so there are tweaks to it. And the open world, I think, does provide an opportunity for people to glean entertainment from it. That maybe just bounce straight off of Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. So I do think there's an opening there for people like me. But I would also say that I was still very frustrated playing this because it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. The way that they design their games. Like I don't understand the logic of it. It's like they're intentionally trying to make some people not like their games when they could make very simple changes that would have made me enjoy this network test a lot more. Like the stuff that some people were sending me DMs that I was like, where I did understand it. And I'm like, that's great. Like, why is some dude sending me a DM on Sifted about this and the game isn't telling me this? Like, it just seems crazy to me. Like, I don't get it.
I mean, they didn't know anything about it until a couple days ago either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, I think they were saying like, a lot of them were like, this has been this way in all of their games. Mm-hmm. Like one person
some of
was
that,
just
but like getting the armor or whatever item you need, like no one knew that before that test went up.
Yeah,
like that's not
right. Well, people were like, you need to use like two-handed combat, and I'm like, okay, how do I do that? How do I use 2 hands? And
triangle.
And then once I do that, like, how do you make it work? And
I don't use that much.
It just feels like this bottomless pit of like no information that you get sent down when you play their games.
Now you know how it feels to try to play Madden.
Do you think does it feel the same way for you?
In the way that I don't understand what the fuck football is, yeah.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what any of those plays mean. I don't know what any of those formations mean. I don't know what the fucking nickel means.
But they show you. It shows you exactly what every guy's doing. That doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what position's doing that. I don't know what the purpose of that. I don't know which arrow, what color means what. Which arrow is the one that's actually the guy who's doing the play. Which of the arrows are just indicating defense or blocking. Like, none of that makes sense to me. Yeah. I guess now that I think about it, you're right. Like, well, no, there are huge tutorials in Madden, actually.
Yeah. Some, but that doesn't mean that it's penetrating.
There's an entire mode that's basically
and remember, I'm thinking about old Madden when I was, like old school Madden, where no, there were no tutorials.
Yeah,
you either knew what that shit was or you didn't. Mm-hmm. I don't even know who the players are. It's like, well, how do I know which players are good? Like, I don't know that.
Well, you look at their ratings.
Yeah, but I don't know what the ratings mean.
It's just 1 to 100.
See, now you're doing what the Dark Souls people do.
No,
because it's not that simple.
No, I agree with you. Football's complicated.
You're into a thing and you understand it. Other people don't. It's just.
No, I do understand that football is complicated because my mom is like 70 something and she still doesn't understand some finer parts of football, and I still have to teach her stuff. My wife, same deal. Like every once in a while, she'll surprise me with a question. I'll be like, "Oh, like you didn't know that?" So I do get it. You're right. Football is very complicated, but I completely disagree that modern Madden absolutely teaches you everything.
Yeah, but modern Madden took 20 years to get to that point.
Yeah,
for a long time, Madden was completely unhelpful.
This game's 2021.
Sports games were thoroughly, completely unhelpful for years and years and years. So maybe in 15 years, Dark Souls 7
everyone else has figured this out. This is settled law. Like they
don't want to do it that way.
Right. This is exactly. And
it doesn't seem to hurt them.
That's what drives me crazy. This is an intentional choice. They don't want to tell the player how to play their games. It's really weird. They're the only ones that do it in the whole industry. I don't know. I
play more weird indie games. They do that.
I mean, I play a lot of weird indie games. Not all of them, but they teach you how to play them. Like
somewhat, but it's like the trick on these is that like the nuance is the game, and so they don't want to teach you the nuance. They want you to find it yourself. There is a weird thing where it's like, you can't come around kind of the other side of the thing where like, I look at Elden Ring and all I see are things I've done before,
right?
Outside of the open world stuff. Like I instantly, you will recall, I instantly said, even when they showed that teaser from before, I'm like, that just looks like the same fucking game I played 6 times.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. You said it last week. Yep.
And which is why I'm not, I'm excited to get my hands on it. I would have played the network test if they'd let me in, but like I don't care about watching footage of it because there's nothing.
Well, I think regular invites are going to be going out here like in the next few days.
Yeah, but I just there is no mystery to me on this outside of like I'd like to see more of it in terms of like want to see what the things look like, what these places look like, what these bosses are like, etc. So yeah, I can kind of go the other way around where I feel like this game doesn't have a whole lot to surprise me with.
It may not. Honestly, it seemed like everybody who had played a lot of From Software games just jumped right in and just went right at it.
I mean, that's what I expect to happen. Is like I'm just gonna run through and be like, oh, okay, this works like this. It's just the same thing like this. There we go.
There's like things you have to learn, like what happens when you sit at a site of grace. Does it respawn the enemies? Does it refill your health? Do you get more? Do you replenish your flasks? Like all that other meta stuff.
But it's all little
if you fast travel,
little details that are all
happens?
Leading to the same mechanics as before, basically.
The horse
is a new wrinkle.
Yeah, the horse is kind of I thought it was hard to fight on horseback, but you have crazy control. So once you're on a horse, the 4 shoulder buttons control your attacks, and I think the top ones, the bumpers on Xbox, are like your weak right and your weak left side of the horse. And then the R2, L2 are your strong attacks on the right side of the horse or the left side of the horse. You can like evade on the horse. So if you hit circle at the right time, you can like do a juke out of the way with the horse. Like you can double jump with the horse, which is really weird and crazy. And the other thing I would say is that because of the fast travel points, the horse isn't that important. It helps you, like, there's some places you can't get unless you have the horse, because you'll hit one of those springs or whatever that spring you, like, way up. And then as soon as you get up there, the first thing you want to do is find a site of grace so that from that point forward, you can fast travel up to that point instead of having to ride the horse. But the horse really just feels like what you use to get to someplace for the first time, and then after that, you can just use the rights for the fast travel stuff. And I think that's all great. Being able to fast travel anywhere you want, I think that's a huge help. And it cuts down a lot of the travel time, helps you get back to places.
I mean, I would definitely use the horse to fight that guy.
Yeah, I went back and fought this guy with the horse. I didn't do much better, honestly, but I tried. I was like, maybe I have a better chance. Yeah. But yeah, he wiped me out in like 2 shots. The second time I fought him, he hit me once, and then he literally butt-checked me with the horse and killed me. The horse's butt just kind of bumped me and just wiped me out. I was like, okay. I never beat that guy. I never did beat him. I'm sure somebody else probably one-hits him or whatever. The other thing, too, is like, I never used magic because the game never showed me how to use it or where to get it or how you use it. Like, I had no idea. There's just so much about it that, like, that's the other thing. People, like, when they were commenting on Sifted on the Hangout, they're like, you got to use magic. I'm like, I don't know how to use magic. The game didn't teach me how to use it. How would I just know? Like, because I haven't played all these games. I don't even know, like, how do you enable so that my character can use magic? Do I have to buy something? Do I have to have a specific piece of gear? Do I need a ring? Do I need, like, I don't know. It's just... So anyway, back to the question I think everyone is asking. First of all, if you love From's games, you're going to love this. Matt, you're going to love this game. I know you're going to love it. I'm sure all the people who love From's games think this is the greatest game ever. It's already their game of the year for next year, etc. For everybody else who has wanted to like these games and has tried and it just hasn't clicked for them like me, I do think there's a better opportunity for you to like this, but also at its heart, it is still very much the same. You're still going to come across an enemy that hits you twice and kills you, and you have no idea what you need to do the next time. That stuff is all still in there. There's just a lot more leeway to kind of waste time if you want to around the open world. But inevitably, it's the big bosses, the big enemies that gatekeep everything, and inevitably you're going to have to beat them if you want to eventually make progress. So you can dwaddle around the open world and collect a bunch of stuff for crafting, and I'm sure that will help. I don't know how much it will help because I can't figure it out, but I'm sure it will in some way. So if you're patient, maybe it could help you ultimately. I never figured out how to summon, which is a huge part of the game.
That's part of the magic, yeah.
Yeah, like I never figured out how to summon the guys. No idea. Never used a projectile, never used a bow, none of it, because the game never introduced it to me and said, this is what you do and this is how you do it. I don't know.
It's almost like you should mess around in the menus and figure out how it works.
I did. I spent way too much time in the menus. What?
Did you ever find a bow?
I don't think I ever got one, no. Yeah, I don't think I ever was awarded one or earned one or whatever. But I'm really more magic. Like, I don't know what you needed to do to be able to cast magic, how you decide what spells you have. I do know there's like these cookbooks that you get, and I believe that's where you get new spells because the cookbooks give you new crafting items. So I'm guessing they probably also are giving you recipes for new spells, but I don't know. I never figured it out, never discovered how it worked, any of that stuff. So, again, I think if you've liked their games in the past, you're going to love this. This may be your game of forever, honestly. It would be interesting to see if fans like the more guided experience than the open world stuff that's happening here. It would be interesting to have someone like that on after you play the network test. I can't wait to talk to you about it and see how you feel about it as a big fan of their games. But for me, I didn't bounce off this.
I rarely meet an open world I don't like.
Yeah,
so
me too.
We'll
I mean, I'm a big open world guy too, so which is another reason why this was so appealing to me and I had such high hopes for it. And look, it hasn't turned me off enough that I won't play the final game and try. Maybe when there's more information out there online that I can search for stuff and Google stuff, it'll be more manageable. I don't know. But for right now, it was very frustrating for me.
Definitely go down that hole this time.
Yeah. Well, by then I'll just be able to Google everything. I'll be able to find an instruction manual written by fans
there
online.
You go. The magic is the good you got along the way.
I don't know what that means.
Get good.
Oh.
It's a Dark Souls joke.
But what is it? I still don't get the joke, though.
Because everyone says, you're asking, where's the magic? I didn't get the magic. And he's like, the magic is the good you get along the way. Because everyone's like, the joke advice for when someone asks a question about any of these games is get good.
I know that, but I don't understand how that joke works there.
Because the good you got, get good. You don't need magic because you just get good.
Oh, so magic isn't necessary.
That's what he's saying. Like, yeah, some people don't use magic.
Ever. Oh, but I'm just saying what people were sending me messages about. They're like, use magic and you'll walk right through.
Yeah, magic is usually easy mode in these games.
Oh, that would have been nice to know. Well, I never found the easy mode.
I don't know if it is here. It sounds like it is.
I tried to do it the hard way. That's what people were telling me.
I don't think the spear is your weapon.
Because someone was also telling me that you can, like, cheese all the enemies in this. That you can, like, goad them and go over to like a big building and get on top of the building and they'll just stand down. And they said that is a big drawback of the open world, is that you can now go to enemies to your location, get them next to a big building, and they'll just stand next to the wall and you can just pelt them from like the top of the building. Like, I didn't do any of that. I just tried to play it legit, at least as close as I know what legit is for their games, which probably isn't all that informed. But I did give it a go. I don't think I'll ever give up on these, Matt. I don't think I'll ever give up trying to enjoy their games because I like everything about them so much.
It's like the game part.
Yeah. I mean, it could be easy, though, to just be like, I'm not even trying them anymore. I'm going to keep trying them. I'm going to keep giving them a chance and see if eventually it breaks. But didn't happen for me on this network test, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people who like these games are probably happy to hear that I didn't enjoy it because they're probably like, that means I will. I'm not clueless to this whole thing, like how people look at me over this series and blah, blah, blah. But I do feel like some Dark Souls fans assume that everyone feels the way they do. And I would argue that the vast majority of people who play video games agree with me on this. But anytime this stuff comes up... I would
argue the vast majority of people that play video games don't even know these games exist.
Maybe, yeah.
Because hundreds of millions of people play video games and these things sell, 5 million copies?
Yeah. Roughly,
they are niche. I mean, they're popular, they're big things, but they're niche.
Yeah,
they're a niche of the hardcore.
Yeah, but I feel like when they always come after me, they act like I'm the weirdo. It's like, no, I'm not the one who's like I'm the ratio, bro. Like,
I think part of the disbelief probably comes from the fact that they've seen you play almost all of these for some length of time, and then you still don't know how to run.
Yeah,
because that's been the same since Demon Souls.
But Matt, I play 1,000 video games, and the run is click down on L3, or it's a shoulder button, or every game does it differently. I'm not going to remember that I played Bloodborne for 3 hours and the run was a circle button. Like, I'm just not.
I'm going to remember what the control scheme is for particular developers' games that have been the same for almost a decade
But
and a
Matt,
half.
you've played these games for literally maybe 1,000 hours. I've played them a grand total of like 7.
Not that
like,
long. I mean,
they haven't imprinted on me at all. Like,
no, but you have played like 7 of them. Like, it just feels like the basic controls should stick somehow. Maybe not the
every other
two-handed.
game run is click on the left stick. This game uses circle, the same button that uses for roll. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The clicking down on the left stick makes you crouch in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's not unusual.
Some games do that.
I was just playing
It's
a game that
usually
did that.
circle, though, that makes you crouch in games. Every shooter, circle.
Okay, shooters, sure, but like, I don't play shooters much.
No,
so.
I mean, action-adventure games, action RPGs, crouch is almost always the circle. Or the B.
I was just playing stuff that's click on the stick to crouch.
Some of them. But anyway, I'm just explaining to you, this series is not imprinted on me. This isn't something that I just know a bunch of stuff about. Like, I've played each one of them, like, most of them an hour before I'm like, nope. And if I really am kind of clicking with them a little bit, maybe I get to 2 or 3 hours. So this isn't, there's nothing I assume about these games because none of them have been imprinted on me the way they have for people who have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours playing them. So, again.
Well, I knew one thing I could assume about this one.
What'd you say?
I knew one thing I could assume about this game.
What?
Which is that it was not going to change your mind.
Yeah, I haven't given up on it yet, honestly.
No, but it's not gonna. You're not gonna get there.
You don't think?
I don't think so. It's just the same game.
It is kind of. We'll see.
I mean, it looked like the same game. Everything I'd seen, which I don't have a problem with.
I just always have hope in these. I'm always like the next one. It's going to be the next one, and it never works out that way for me.
Look, if you want to like these games, you're gonna have to go to them.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the truth of the matter, and From has no interest in changing that.
Yeah, that's what's become blatantly obvious with this game in particular. Once they went to the open world and changed so much about it that they still kept the core of the game the same. You're right; they're probably never going to do it now. I've learned that lesson, but I haven't given up on this. When it comes out, I'm going to play it, and it's only 2 months away. I will say this too: really polished.
3.
Yeah,
End of February.
Yeah. It's really polished. I didn't find any glitches. Like, there is some LOD issues. Like, you can see, like, foliage drawing in, off in the distance and some little stuff like that. And I will say it didn't look as good as the video that From Software put out last week. I don't know if they had that running on some crazy-ass PC or whatever. But playing it on PS5, it did not look as good. I mean, you're looking at the B-roll from PS5 right now. I did not think it looked as good as the video that From put out last week. It's still a good-looking game. I thought the video From put out, it looked like a next-gen game.
That was probably a PC version.
Probably. What I played, it looked like a last-gen game being played on PS5. Still very pretty. Obviously, still incredible art, all that jazz. Great sound design, all that stuff. But not quite as wowy, if that's a word. I wasn't as blown away by it playing it as I was when I first watched that gameplay footage they put out last week. Still a good-looking game, though. And there you go. That's my impressions of Elden Ring, the closed network test. And pretty soon, it's going to be the not closed network test. If you guys went and signed up for it, like Matt and I recommended like a couple months ago when they put it up for signups, you guys should definitely, I think it's probably too late now, you should definitely keep an eye on your inboxes here over the next few days. I have a feeling they're going to start sending out invites so everybody can get in on it. And maybe I'll go back when it's open to everybody and give it a whirl again. But, man, looking down the calendar here over the next 4 weeks, it's going to be tough to find time to play a game that isn't coming out.
Will it?
I think.
What's left other than Halo?
Well, there's Battlefield.
Oh.
Which comes, you're going to find time to play it. And that's the good news. You're going to play it, and you'll come on, and you'll have, from the perspective of someone who knows the games really well.
I was thinking about, Battlefield and Halo seem like the only things left for the year. Is there something I'm missing or forgetting?
Maybe not,
actually. We lost Dying Light 2.
Yeah,
we lost
that's right.
Horizon 2.
That's right. Maybe so. Yeah, you may be right. Maybe we'll find a little time. We'll see. I didn't hate my time playing this, by the way. It was just frustrating and very samey compared to playing a lot of their prior games. And maybe in the open one, I can find a partner. Because that's the other thing, too. I didn't get to try any of the co-op stuff.
Yeah, there is no further test.
Oh, there isn't?
No, that was it.
That was it? So wait, you signed up and just got denied?
I never got a thing, yeah.
Weird. I'm surprised that they let just random people apply for the closed network test.
I mean, it was a stress test, I'm sure.
Yeah, weird. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, actually. Huh. Oh, yeah, Vincent brings up Pokemon
All right,
Friday.
Pokemon.
I think there's a couple more Switch games.
I thought Solar Ash got delayed to next year.
Did it? Is that true?
I thought it did. I thought I saw a delay on that. Maybe it was just for a couple weeks.
I didn't remember that.
Maybe it's still this year, but it just slipped to December.
Well, I'll say this. If anyone knows indie games, when they're coming out or
Yeah.
not, it's Game Manual in our chat.
I thought I saw something about
He's the
about a
indie
delay
game
on
god and a good friend of ours and an awesome guy. And I trust him. If he said something about an indie game, I'm like, book it. Because I know one thing's for sure. He knows more about it than I do. I'll guarantee it. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about another JRPG, except this one you played, and I didn't really play at all. I played again and again, like the first hour of this. I'm going to talk about Shin Megami Tensei V. Maybe, Matt, the best way to couch this discussion is to kind of keep in mind a game that a lot of people played that maybe they can use as a frame of reference, and the games are kind of similar, like Persona 5. They're both JRPGs that take place in these schools where you're around.
No.
They're not.
No, there's no comparison to Persona.
Really?
Other than the demons are a lot of the same demons and sort of like,
Like, again, I only played the first hour, but the game kicks off in a school.
and you never see it again.
Oh, okay.
See,
Interesting.
the Persona games are a spin-off of these games where they focus on the school life and sort of the schedule of school. It's like of a team of characters who solve mysteries or solve like the end of the world or whatever sort of thing. In the Shin Megami Tensei games, the world ends like in the first hour.
Okay.
And you have to deal with that.
Oh, so you play the whole game through the apocalypse.
Pretty much. Like, yeah, you are not going back to the school. You are not dealing with your friends. In fact, the Shin Megami Tensei mainline games are intensely lonely. You rarely see other people, and when you do, it's a quick conversation about, it would be best if we split up. I'm going to go over here and do this thing. I'm like, I feel like we should all stick together in the post-apocalyptic hellscape full of monsters.
Well, it's like that one TV commercial where there's like a serial killer trying to kill the kids, and the girl's like, why don't we get in the car? And the other girl's like, no, let's go hide by the chainsaws.
Hide in the shed behind that chainsaw collection. You can see here that, certain characters have faces, so they're going to actually have dialogue later, and like that kind of thing. But yeah, very very early on, you end up in a tunnel while some big earthquakey thing happens. When you come out, you're in another world that might be the real world 20 years later after a demon angel war that ended humanity. But some of you are still around, and then you fuse with this guy. You fuse with this like other angel-y, demon-y guy and you become a new life form whose name I can't remember. It's like a Nahabino or something like that.
Yeah, I made it through that part, and then you turn into it almost looks like you turn into a girl.
He's a little fluid, yeah.
A little fluid.
I mean, they still say he. But yeah, he's got long flowing hair and
it's funny looking at like all the trailers for this before it came out and before I played it. I thought the lead character was a girl.
No, he's a guy. He's a very slim, pretty guy.
Yeah, I got skinny legs. That dude's got me beat, though.
Yeah. Also, I have a lot of questions about the choice of school uniform here. Like, they look a lot like pajamas.
The one girl looks like, what's her name from Scooby-Doo?
Velma. Yeah, I think that might be intentional.
Oh, really? Then the other blonde dude looks exactly like the one character from Persona 5.
Looks a lot like him, yeah.
Yeah. What was his name?
I don't remember.
It begins with an R. I don't know. I spent 100 hours.
Ryuji or something like that? Yeah.
I spent 100 hours of that game, and I can't remember the name of one of the 5 main characters. That's terrible.
But, and this is, classic overworld navigation from these games.
So the world ends. You're left to do what?
Basically to gather demons and work your way through labyrinths, and presumably early on you just want to find out what the hell happened, and presumably you want to either reverse it or find whoever's left and I don't know.
Is there a goal?
I assume there
Are
is.
you trying to bring the old world back or anything?
I figure that will come up eventually. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far, and I'm only like 3 or 4 hours in. I got bored real fast.
Really?
I gotta be honest. I've played several of the the main Shin Megami Tensei games. I did play the Nocturne remaster earlier this year. Also burned out on that real fast. Like, for all the shit I give the Persona games, I do vastly prefer that format for this franchise. This, I feel, is very sterile and lacks a lot of character for me to hang on to, and it just becomes like running through with my little posse of demons and like fighting.
It's like Pokemon. You're collecting
sort of
the
Pokemon-y,
demons.
yeah.
It's like a Pokemon for tweens instead of kids.
And there he is in his skin tight his skin tight pajama.
It's like I got some
uniform.
chicken legs, but that dude.
That guy doesn't just skip leg day. He has never heard of leg day. And so there's you recruit them like usual Shin Megami Tensei style. You talk to them and they'll like ask you weird questions. You can choose to
talk instead of fight them, right?
Yeah. It's always been kind of how it works. It's like you can talk to them and they'll ask you weird questions. Depending on how you answer, whether you give them stuff, they might join you or they might not. So you pretty quick, and then you can fuse them, and pretty quickly you build up a decent little squad. You can have 3 demons with you.
Yeah, so 4-person party.
Yeah, including you. Mm-hmm. You swap in and out pretty much at will out of combat. All the combat is on. There's no random battles. It's all on screen. Like you see them in the overworld. You can
avoid them. If you
swing
want.
the sword to start the battle with a little extra boost, or
if you get them from behind first,
or if you get them at all. Like,
okay.
And if they get you first, they start first. Basically, the difference who goes first. It uses the same weakness system as you're familiar with if you play Persona. If you hit them with a weakness, with something they're weak to, or you hit them get a critical hit, you will gain another turn. So basically, you have a like on your turn, you have a series of actions, and if hitting them with something they're weak to, or getting a critical hit or something, doing something good will get you another move for that turn.
Okay.
And screwing up, like missing or hitting them with something they block or hitting them with something they're immune to, will sometimes cost you 2 moves.
Okay.
So your turn will end faster. And then they get the same thing. The enemy can gain some moves as well if they.
Or you can take them away.
Get critical, yeah.
If you block or whatever.
Yeah, they'll use up 2 if they miss.
Okay.
So it works both ways. As with these games, so commonly, hit points and magic points are valuable, and because you have to use. It's not like a game where you can just sort of like coast your way on basic attacks and get through it, because you got to use the weak points to really like exploit the system and not get creamed repeatedly. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that makes this one, I think, more difficult so far is that you got to pay to heal. Like when you go
pay with what?
Money.
So there's currency in the game.
Yeah. So
Do you get currency after every battle?
Usually, not a ton, but and you can get it from like. There's vending machines and things that give you like what are called relics of the old world, which are like sodas and stuff. You sell them to this merchant for a fair amount of money. So you're never like super low on money, but you're always using resources. It's sort of like if you like to play JRPGs where you get to like hoard everything and not only need to lean on your item inventory or lean on your magic abilities when like you want to like attack a boss or something. This is not going to work for you because
you have to use everything.
You have to constantly be on point.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool.
But like there's save points, little fountain, ley line founts, and usually in these games, like in like Persona or whatever, when you go there, you can rest and get all your ability, all your health and everything back. Mm-hmm. In this, you have to pay
to get your health back.
To get your health and your magic points back per character.
Always.
Yeah.
There's no place to go where your health replenishes.
Not so far.
Wow.
I mean, maybe eventually.
That's like, brutal.
But like so far in what I've been playing, I mean, you have like items you can use to replenish and stuff, and there are I can't remember the in-game name, but there are like little glowy dots around.
Yeah, they just actually showed that.
Where you can pick those up and.
What are those?
They're like some kind of crystal thing or whatever. But the green ones replenish health. The yellow ones replenish magic, and the red ones replenish what's essentially your super bar.
And are they just laying around, or do you have to defeat enemies to
They
get
are
them?
Just laying around, but they do not replenish, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
So basically, they're put in strategic points of the dungeon, so you can
just to give you enough.
Yeah.
To make
but that also means you got if you're full up, don't just go run around picking them up.
Right.
You got to hang on to them because the enemies respawn constantly.
Oh,
Like
really?
you can never clear the area. Like you always can go fight things whenever you want. And then eventually you come to like a boss, which is usually a big glowing red tentacly thing called an abscess. And once you get through that, you open a new section of the map, and you get access to new what's called miracles. So the other way you upgrade is you find these little demons that are helping the merchant guy, and you send them back home, and that gets you what's called glory.
Okay.
Other thing, you can find glory in the world and do other things to get glory, but basically you spend glory to get miracles, which are upgrades that do a little thing, anything you can think of. Various kinds. There's like, your various elemental attacks, improve them by 1. Or I have one that when I level up, I get half my magic and hit points back.
Okay.
Whereas normally when you level, you get nothing for that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So you can upgrade your character that way. And there's the usual fusion stuff with the demons. Like once you pick up demons, you can fuse them together and get new demons or get more powerful demons, or combine. You got one version of a demon that you like, but you want it to be more powerful, or you pick up another version of that same type of demon that has a move you want, that your favorite version of that demon, that you can fuse them and give them that move, stuff like that. So
I like the art in this game.
art's cool.
Very cinematic.
Yeah, it looks very nice.
I mean, more so really than Persona 5.
Yeah, like Persona 5 had a cool art design going on, but I don't know how well it translated. Also, like I played Persona 5 so long that I was sick of looking at it.
Yeah. I'm just saying there weren't a lot of cinematics in the game, like full animated ones, lots of text bubbles to read, but not necessarily a lot of cinematics.
Yeah, and there's a fair amount. I mean, it's not actually, like these Shin Megami, there's a lot of cinematics early on, but you settle into just sort of standard dungeon crawling pretty fast.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I just don't have the patience for it right now because it isn't. You can't autopilot on this thing. Like you gotta fight. You gotta
pay attention.
Manage your resources. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta. I've always found the Shin Megami Tensei games to be, a little thinkier than your usual like JRPG.
Mm-hmm. There's no strategy like grid stuff involved, is there?
No.
Yeah.
Like positioning.
Right.
No, not that I know of.
Are you gonna keep playing this?
Probably, but I didn't play it too long because I had to move on to other things. Everything we played this week, I only played enough to kind of get my head around it, really.
Yeah.
I will say that like this is, I don't know, it feels oddly sterile to me, just in terms of gameplay. I'm like the battle system isn't hooking me in the way that like Persona's usually does. Or even that Nocturnes did. I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe just it feel like.
Well, Persona 5 was pretty active.
Yeah, very
active.
active.
Stuff happening that was like on
very active, and there's
time.
other characters. Like
Yeah.
the fact that you're with a team of characters that are summoning the personas is different from like how you're using sort of a little Pokemon team on this.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the Diamond and Pearl remakes on the a week away. Or less than a week away. I feel
That's
like
a good point,
I feel like that's going to scratch this itch better than this is right now.
So do you feel, is it a lonely game? Do you feel like isolated while you're playing it?
A little bit, yeah.
Games like that can be oppressive sometimes.
Yeah, I mean that is sort of the tone that the main series has always had. I think anyone who's played Nocturne knows what I'm talking about there. Yeah. It doesn't suffer from replaying Nocturne was interesting because I really liked Nocturne back in the day, and playing it now I was like I didn't know where to go. I got lost constantly in that game. And I didn't remember getting lost back when I played it on the PS2. I'd constantly look up like maps and stuff.
Huh. Our brains were wired different back then.
Maybe, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I just, I don't know. Like, I feel like Pokemon's going to be more my speed.
Is that what you're recommending? People wait and see?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you really need to wait and see because if you play Diamond and Pearl, you kind of know what you're getting into on these things.
Some people may not have, though.
They're going to be a cakewalk compared to this thing. I think these games are pretty challenging. I just don't feel like doing that right now.
Yeah. So it's not one of those games where you can just sit there and keep spamming the same attack, using the same strategy with every battle.
Like especially because of how the multiple turn thing works, multiple moves thing works. Mm-hmm. Like if you get careless and the enemy gets lucky, like you could get wiped out, in 2 turns.
And what are the consequences of that?
You have to reload your last save.
So is it all manual saving? You have to just keep saving constantly?
I think so, yeah. Like I haven't seen a lot of autosaves. If there's an autosave, I haven't seen it. I haven't actually. I've only been wiped out like twice because I fought an optional boss a couple times the wrong. Because there's a point like early on when there's like, oh, there's a thing over here you could go do. I'm like, okay, I'll go do that. It's like, oh no, you should not be here yet, sir. Like,
why would it let you do that? Is the world? Can you go back?
You can go back. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
These games do not care whether you'll learn the hard way.
But they're not linear.
No. I mean, they're linear in if you want to progress the story, but there's plenty of reasons to go back because all the save points are teleport points.
Because you could also maybe go back and get some of the health stuff that you didn't pick up, or the magic replenishment, or whatever.
If you need it, yeah. If you were smart enough to skip it when you didn't need it.
Huh.
I mean, it's not impossible at all, but it's just like it's a little more resource management intensive than what I was kind of waiting for.
What are these blue things here?
What blue things?
The blue, like,
those are the save points.
Okay, they seem really frequent.
Yeah, they're not uncommon. That's also where you go see him. He's the merchant, and then there's a woman who does the fusion, the Queen of Shadows or whatever. She does the fusion stuff. Those are the Mimons are the little demons you find and send back to him. So that's showing however many of those you rescue. Those are what you get for every 5 of them.
Oh, okay, got you.
So that's your collect-a-thon for the game.
Sounds like there's a lot of collecting to be done in this, but it doesn't sound like it's really targeted towards the audience that would normally like collecting in games.
Yeah, I mean,
like, do you think first of all, I don't think a kid maybe should be playing this, but could a kid get through this game, do you think?
I'm sure they would if they focused on it and didn't have anything else to play. We played harder things growing up because we had no choice. Yeah, it's Shin Megami Tensei. Like, it's definitely exactly what I expected.
Have you not had any surprises at all?
No.
That's disappointing. But it has been a long time since the last one.
Yeah, like the performances are good. Like, the voice. I'm surprised at how much voice acting there is. Like, usually I would expect like the opening to have voice acting, and the rest would just be that thing that like they do now, where someone goes, "Whoa."
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And like the rest of the text box goes up. So it's like, huh? Yes. Like that kind of thing. Like what Tales of Arise did a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of JRPGs do that. But yeah, there's a lot of voice acting in this.
Yeah.
And this is you.
So
right,
presentationally, this is by like head and shoulders above anything else the main series has ever done. Like,
yeah. Oh, far and away. But Nintendo gave them 5 years basically to make it.
Yeah, although I will argue, like, I can see why. I think there's 5 years of work on the screen most of the time in this. Like,
and now they're saying it's going to come to PC as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the rumors floating around this week, is that it's eventually coming to PC.
That would make sense.
Instead of just Switch. So I don't know how long of an exclusivity period Nintendo locked down for this. I guess it would be a year. And this is you trying to recruit demons to your cause. And is there any clue as far as like what you should be doing in the dialogue? Or is it just luck?
I don't know the nuances of the system in this game, but traditionally it's mostly random.
No.
Like, you never can know what
question
there's no guarantee of like, if this monster asks you this, say this, because you never. A lot of it's coin flippy, which is infuriating at times. Like Nocturne in particular, the remaster of Nocturne, I didn't get a demon to join me for hours.
Really?
Like, it was just me and that damn pixie for like a long time, to the point that I was looking. I'm like, can you not do that until they introduce? Like, no, they're like, no, you should be able to get these demons in the first. Couldn't. No matter what I did, nobody would join me. It almost felt like a bug.
Wow.
But they join you pretty easy. It's at least early on, it's not that hard to figure out what they want here.
Now, if you're looking for value for your money,
that also costs money and items too, because they always demand stuff from you. But sometimes if you say no, they respect you for not giving in. So like, you never quite know what you're gonna get.
Now, these games generally are gigantic, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking for value from a game purchase,
these are long.
These
are 60, 70 hour games typically.
Yeah. So if you are someone who's looking for value from your game purchases, this is not a terrible choice if you're a JRPG fan. And you probably should need to be a hardcore JRPG fan to really appreciate this too, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is much like Elden Ring. This is a game that you are going to have much easier time getting into if you have played this series before.
Yeah.
Specifically the Shin Megami Tensei main series. Persona is not going to really prepare you for this outside of sort of knowing a lot of the strengths and weaknesses of the various demon types, like that, in terms of that, you're gonna know who's weak to electric and who's weak to fire, and who, that's all pretty much the same. But in terms of the mechanics of the battle system, this is a very different beast from
I'm
Persona.
kind of surprised that so much time and money and resources have gone into this game.
I mean, it's a venerable series in among its fandom. Like, I would argue that Persona has, for the most part, eclipsed it, despite the fact that Persona is technically a subline
of this.
Of this.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Nintendo's gonna ever recoup its money from this investment.
Probably.
You think so? 5 years of development. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Even for a game like this, that's a lot. It'll sell better in Japan than it will here. I'll guarantee that much.
We'll never know, probably. Yeah.
What?
We'll never know.
Right, if it recoups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll know if Shin Megami Tensei 6 is multi-platform.
Yeah. And I mean, this has been a weird, it's been out of the spotlight for a long time. 4 was on DS, and a lot of people missed it.
I mean, that's maybe the only one I've played. I think
never played Nocturne?
I don't think so.
PS2? Like, that was really good. That was a revelation at the time.
And they just redid it and re-released it, and I didn't play it then either.
Yeah, earlier this year, like May, I think.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like, I was a very different person then, apparently, because I didn't like the remaster very much.
Interesting.
I don't know. I just was more patient, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, God, get on with it. Like, it's such a slow burn. This is much faster. This builds faster than the previous games. I did play 4, but I remember nothing about it. And I think I'm mixing some of it up with Strange Journey, which was also on DS.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that blends together for me.
I think a lot of JRPGs blend together.
Somewhat. Like Persona,
especially Atlas's stuff.
One of Persona's strength is that it stands out. Like the Persona formula was kind of found in 3, because 1 and 2 were on the PS1, and they were more standard JRPG. They were, they weren't like dungeon crawls like these. They were more standard JRPGs. And then Persona 3 is the one that kind of turned it into scheduling your school time sim plus relationship building sim plus dungeon crawling thing that has sort of defined the Persona subline since then. And I think that is the place they found the most personality. I mean, makes it Persona.
Yeah,
that's where they found the most personality and the most fandom hooks for, like, because people like these characters and they like it had a funkier music hook to it for the most. They play a little more.
Music of Persona 5 was great.
Oh yeah, and the music in this is good, but it's also like not memorable in the way that Persona 5 and Persona 4s were.
Persona's just more lighthearted.
It is,
and it's going to appeal to a broader audience because of that.
I mean, the Persona games are more like an anime show, and these are more like, I don't know, an anime film that was very influenced by Vampire Hunter D.
Right.
Yeah,
I get it. Okay, so there you go. That's Persona. There you go.
Yeah. It's amazing how much Persona has eclipsed the rest of the IP.
Yeah. Shin Megami Tensei 5. It's a Switch exclusive for now. There are rumors it's coming to PC. Matt recommends you wait and see how well the new Pokemon turns out that's coming out. You should get reviews for that.
Maybe I would argue that there's no reason to own this and Pokemon at the same time. Like, you should probably pick one.
Yeah. And obviously this one's angled a little more towards an older audience. I'm guessing this has a T rating.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on whether they cut Mara out or not.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, even those little like monkey demons have little penises hanging off.
Oh, really?
Like, you don't really see. There's a shadow of it, but it's like, yeah, that's a
wang,
tiny wang, and a little scrotum.
Yeah. So don't buy Shin Megami Tensei
you don't get that
for the
Pokemon.
kids. Definitely get the kids the Pokemon game. But I think you're right, Matt. There's someone to probably choose between one of these. And then maybe next year, if you're ready for another JRPG that's going to take you 60, 70 hours to get through, maybe then you come back to one of the ones that you don't decide to pick up now, and chances are it'll be cheaper. And if you choose Shin Megami Tensei 5, I almost guarantee that it will be cheaper later on.
Apparently it's selling real well in UK.
Oh, it is? Mm-hmm. SMT is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's rated M.
Rated M. Wow. I did not get that vibe from discussing that game with you.
I mean, it's more of the demon designs. Like, there's implications of naked boobs, and Mara is just a giant penis on a chariot. I mean,
Hashtag character design. All right,
they are straight up talking about like God fighting Satan in this game. You know, like,
okay.
it's really funny to play this game and think about you know, how Nintendo used to not allow them to put crosses in cemeteries in Castlevania, and now it's just like, oh, we're just going to do a war between God and demons.
Wasn't there a huge problem with Chrono Trigger?
Yeah, Chrono Trigger had some crosses
Cuts
in it
and stuff they had to make before Nintendo would let it be
Yep.
released. Yeah.
And ActRaiser.
Yeah,
ActRaiser had some trouble because it was, you know, in it was a lot of it was Nintendo America.
Yeah.
Because the Japanese one is pretty explicitly the Judeo-Christian God you're playing, and like they're not really, you know, it's
they don't care.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you see that in you see that in this. Like they use a lot of Judeo-Christian mythology and imagery in this because
In Japan,
it's just another cool thing. It's
or
just
it's
lore.
just some weird religion.
Yeah,
in
like
Japan.
what was it Yoko Kanno or something?
Never see a picture of Jesus in Tokyo.
Yeah, I think, or if you do, it's from that manga where he's like roommates with Buddha,
Right?
which is actually very funny.
Yeah.
But I think, was it Yoko Kanno? It was an interview I read with a Japanese composer. I think she was just talking about, like, you know, in Japan we just read through these this imagery and like we just think it's cool.
Yeah.
Like nobody takes it seriously.
Right.
Which is why you get things like Evangelion, which is just like we're just going to take all the Kabbalah stuff and just like throw it in a pot and pull out what we think looks neat.
Yeah.
That's why Sephiroth's named what he's named.
Yeah. Yep. Different culture for sure. There you go. That's SMT5 Switch exclusive for now, M-rated, as we just found out. And we're recommending that you choose between that or the new Pokemon, which comes out on Friday. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Jurassic World Evolution 2, which I have not played a monster-raising park sim in a long time. The first game, you played it, and I did not. But for whatever reason, I had a hankering to give one of these games a go. I haven't played anything like it for quite a while.
A hunk of cheese, huh?
I only mildly regret it. How much time did you spend with this, Matt?
Oh, like I got most of the way through the campaign and played in the sandbox mode a bit.
Yeah.
And,
well, you know the campaign's only about 3 hours long.
It's not
it's like...
not the most intense thing I've ever played. And it doesn't teach you anything about how to play the main game.
No.
Like, it's weird.
I think the campaign is actually like the tutorial
a little bit, yeah. But it also doesn't teach you the basics. This is kind of a theme today. I would be completely lost in this game if I hadn't played the first one.
I never played the first one, but I managed.
Like, there's things where I'm just like, okay, the tutorial wanted me to, like, but why? But okay, I know because I played the first game, I need to do this first, so I did that, and like it was very weird.
I figured out about this game is it does not allow for you to think for yourself. So, like, one of the very first things that you do in this game is you first build it. You have a pen, and you put the first dinosaur in the pen. And then they tell you to go out and tranquilize and pick up these Triceratops. So I did that, and I brought them back. I put them in the pen. Oh, no. I needed to put them in their own pen because they won't get along with the other dinosaur. Once you put them in the pen with the other dinosaur, there's no getting them out. There's no way to get them out.
Yeah, there is.
No.
You can trank them.
You can't.
Yeah, you do.
How?
You get the helicopter that shoots the tranks, and you trank the thing, and you airlift it out. That's the only way to move a dinosaur around. It's ridiculous.
It's weird. I just started over.
Yeah, it was probably faster than doing that.
It might have been.
Yeah.
I just literally started the whole game over because at that point I had gone through all this other stuff and I was like, oh, I can do that now in like 5 seconds, which I did. And then I discovered that there are scientists in this. There's like this interface that you go to where you have scientists who are doing research to use DNA to create dinosaurs and create new kinds of dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. I discovered that on my own. And so I went and started assigning the scientists to these different tasks. And
the campaign doesn't want you to go off the reservation.
No.
Like that.
So listen to what. So they go to introduce the whole interface of the scientists to me. And instead of looking at it like, oh, the thing is, the mission is assign a scientist to a task. I had already assigned the scientist to a task. It would not register. So I had to fire a scientist at a great cost, by the way, like $1 million and some dollars. I had to fire the scientist and then rehire them, and then it checked the objective. This game is full of crap like that, where it just like it only thinks people are going to play it one way, and everyone's going to sit there and just wait for everything to be spoon-fed. This is in some ways, the antithesis of Elden Ring.
Yeah, the campaign certainly is. I mean, the sandbox isn't like that.
Yeah.
Like the sandbox and challenge modes are much more freeform. But they rely on you knowing how the game works in a way that the campaign doesn't really teach you very well.
Yeah.
Campaign is over, so because I only played for a few hours, and I'm back. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try this.
That's how long
and
it is.
I was 80% done. I didn't realize I only had one more mission left in the campaign. It's like 5 missions or something. And that doesn't even unlock anything.
We should set up what it's all about. So it takes place after the events of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Dinos have taken over North America.
Yeah, there's dinosaurs everywhere in
and
America.
You work for like Parks and Rec, basically.
Yeah.
And you have to go out and collect the dinosaurs and bring them and put them into these pens and then create a tourist trap, basically, where people will come and check out the dinosaurs. So,
which is funny because apparently you can just go in your backyard and see a Triceratops now if you live in California. So,
yeah. And like the second mission is like your dinosaurs are trying to go across the border into Canada, and you have to stop them. Like, it's really weird. And then the first is out. This is Arizona, I think. It's out in the middle of the desert or whatever. The very first mission. And so that's the objective. And then you build a park, and you have to make sure that you have like these viewing vestibules next to the pens so people can see the dinosaurs. And then you have to make sure that the dinosaurs are happy. So you scan the dinosaurs after you put them in the pens, and they tell you what they want. They want certain kinds of foliage. They want water. They want meat. They want fish. So you have to make sure that you install all that stuff in their pens to get them to a certain level of happiness and contentment. Then once you do that, like random stuff happens, like there'll be a weather event, and like all the pens will get broken down. You have to call on the chopper to trank them and fix the fences and put them all back in. That's pretty much the crux of the game. It's very easy to manage, and then they throw stuff at you to try to challenge you with the management part of it, essentially. All the while you have to build these facilities that you're seeing right now. Most of them are just really for show. You have to make sure that there's power to every building. You have to make sure that there's a walkway to every building. And that's pretty much it. And it's not like it's just one continuous thing that you play. The campaign is broken up into missions. So you start out with this one, and this is in like Arizona or wherever. And then you finish this one, and then you go to the one I was talking about earlier, where you try to stop the dinosaurs from going across the border into Canada, and you just jump around.
Dinosaurs are taking our jobs.
Yeah, they're going to take our jobs. You just jump around North America, going from city to city, and they give you a specific scenario, and then the whole thing just kind of repeats over and over, really. Sometimes,
but only a couple times because
it's not very long,
very short.
Yeah. But what I found is there's another mode called Chaos Theory, and that's the one that I ended up playing the most. And basically it presents scenarios from the films, and you either have to fix them or make them go the way that they're supposed to go versus how they ended up being a disaster in the films or whatever. You're basically fixing things that they screwed up in the films. I found that to be way more interesting. I also found it to be way bigger than the actual campaign in this.
It's also like managing an actual theme park.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you don't really do that in the campaign. The campaign is very odd.
It is odd. There's no like concession stands and all that kind of stuff that you would normally work with in a park sim.
And then if you jump into sandbox mode, you're going to be expected to know that you need to do all that and how to do all that, and there's nothing there to teach you.
You've never learned it. Yeah. It's a weird game. I haven't played a game like this in a while, and I didn't play the last one. Is this better than the last one?
No, it's practically an expansion pack.
Oh, really?
Like, it's very simple. You got the marine dinosaurs and the flying dinosaurs are new, and the areas are bigger. Like the fact that you can go out and catch them, like it's different, but it's very simple. Like I said, like a lot of the procedures are identical to the point that I knew them before the tutorial would tell me, or if the tutorial didn't tell me, I knew how to do it anyway because I'd already done it in the previous game.
So in the previous game, you still do this. You fly out, you trank the dinosaurs, then call in the transport, tell it where to take them.
I mean, usually you don't have to do that unless they escape.
Oh.
That was not as common.
So catching dinosaurs wasn't a thing in the first one?
No, because they weren't loose in the world.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's a pretty big change.
So, but that's also...
Maybe not for the better, though.
That's also not... If you're playing Chaos Theory, that's also irrelevant because you are playing the theme park sims from the previous movies.
Yep.
In sandbox mode, it's more prevalent. Yeah, it's the people who say that this probably should have been DLC are not wrong.
Yeah. It's $60, by the way.
Yeah, it's a full price game.
Yeah, that's
with a season
too much.
pass.
That's way too much.
Especially because like, I'm playing it on Xbox and like, oh god, the controls are bad.
Really?
Like I continually wish I had gotten it on PC.
Oh, I mean, they're bad. So, like, flying the helicopter is weird.
Mm-hmm.
When you switch views, so you're trying to trank the dinosaur, bad.
Yeah.
Like, if all the dinosaur has to do is just go to the other side of the helicopter, and then you have a 30-second turn to turn the helicopter around.
You know what's really annoying is like there's an achievement for tranking a dinosaur from like 125 meters or something. And like I was shooting, and at one point, sometimes like when you got the Xbox idle, like the achievement things will pop up and like they'll show you. So it's like pop that up and it's like progress made 99%. So I must have hit one from like 124 meters or something. I was like, oh, bite me! Don't show me that, you jerk.
You do have to go to the pens. Like you basically set this little guard station up inside the pens. You have to assign like your workers to work the pens.
They're supposed to go patrol for that, but sometimes you tell them to go. You have to have them go do something else, and then like sometimes they go back on the patrol, and sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they go back to base without you telling them to.
Yeah, there's a lot of like. Everybody wants to go back for coffee a lot. Like there's not a lot of stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah, but you end up in the pens. You have to go in, you scan them, and that's how you find out what their needs are.
Yeah, needy little bastards.
And then you go in, and like some of them like rocks.
Like yes, and you want more sand. We're out of pen. One of them I got was like I think it was an Allosaurus, and it was a Brachiosaurus, and it was just like more space, more. I'm like there's no more space.
Yeah,
like
that's
they
it.
won't
That's
let me
all there
build
is.
anymore. Like I can't. You're gonna have to just deal with it.
And like the interface for the fencing is weird. Like it's hard to like if there's a hole in the fence. Like a lot of times instead of just patching the hole, it ended up like double patching like a lot of the fence lines.
It's hard to draw. It's also like it's hard enough to do them in like straight lines.
Yeah,
but it won't let you like do a certain distance out.
No.
I'm like why
you
can't
can't
I just
pick point A and point B
why can't I just
and
go
put a
all the
fence
way
in
out?
between. You have to draw it in
unless
sections.
you like hold a button to make you do that, but I didn't find what that button was. If it
I don't know
was
either.
There. And this is one of those games where I don't want to mess with all the buttons because I don't want to know. I'm worried it's gonna like cancel something or like throw me into some other menu I don't want to get out of.
The most exciting part of this game is when the dinosaurs attack your Jeep.
Yeah.
And they like send it flying or whatever, and then knock themselves unconscious after they do it.
Yeah, the most dangerous job in this park is medic.
It is absolutely.
Yeah. And it doesn't explain that either. So like, early on there's a thing where like the Brachiosaurus has like a broken leg or something, and so like there's like you can shoot them with the medical darts to like heal them. And I'm just like
broken bone.
I emptied like 40 darts into this thing, and it's just not changing anything. And then I'm like,
it killed it.
No, it didn't. But I just didn't do anything. And I'm like, what does it want me to do? It's like, it wants me to airlift it to the medical center to repair its broken bone and then airlift it back to the pen. I'm like,
there it is. There the dinosaur is.
I'm like, first off, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Trank it, send the medics out, and they can set the bone
right there
in the field. Like, why you want to
bring it back?
Why you want to lift a 50-ton animal with a helicopter, risking all kinds of further injury? It's probably how it got its broken leg in the first place. Then drop it on a helipad and then bring it. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, I killed a dinosaur because it wasn't registering that I was tranking it, and I wasn't getting the meter that goes up. So basically, most of them it takes 2 darts to completely trank them. I wasn't getting the meter filling up showing that I had tranked it. So I just kept unloading it. I'm like, I'm missing, but I'm like right on. And it died. I overtranked it and it died.
But it died happy.
Oblivious at the very least. And I had to start the whole thing over. Like, I don't know. This is definitely not worth $60. No. That's bottom line.
I mean, unless you are desperate for like 3D dinosaurs in tiny pens.
And I'll say this: the dinosaurs look real good.
They look really good. Although there's some choices here that I don't agree with, and like in terms of like how the couple of the dinosaur skulls are weird choices.
But you got to remember, Matt, these aren't actually the dinosaurs. They've been genetically whatever. They explain that in the game,
right? But the Megalosaurus skull doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
So it's like also like Velociraptors couldn't take down a Brachiosaurus.
Yeah.
Like, if you just leave them alone long enough, they will kill the sauropod.
Just stomp them, yeah.
A 6 foot tall, 6 foot tall turkey could kill us pretty easily, but 3 of them are not bringing down a sauropod.
No, it's
like
not
that's
happening.
the whole point of being a sauropod is you need basically much larger carnivores to hurt them.
There are 79 dinosaurs in this, Matt, and I think I knew probably 15.
Yeah,
It gets really
the field is
granular.
much wider. I recently, when a few years ago, when my niece and nephew were into dinosaur stuff, I actually bought more current, little dinosaur
Updated
encyclopedia
books,
things.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who any so many
Yeah.
dinosaurs currently come out. I either change the names, they have different names, or they're different types.
Or now they have
that
feathers.
More about, or they have the feathers.
Where they didn't before.
Or a lot of them come out of China. Because they found so many bones there now and
Yeah.
identified them, and like paleontology out of China is booming because there's so many good finds there.
Interesting.
And so so many of these are basically versions of types of dinosaurs we know, but they have new names because they're new species discovered in the last 20 years because of all the Chinese digs that have found new stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Or some things, Triceratops might be just a juvenile Torosaurus now. That might be the same animal. But it gets to still be called Triceratops because the Triceratops name is older.
Yeah. You're never going to get rid of Triceratops.
And now Brontosaurus is back somehow.
Oh, really? It disappeared for a while?
For a long time, it was believed that Brontosaurus was not a real species. It was just an Apatosaurus with the wrong head put on it.
Oh.
But then now Brontosaurus is back somehow. I don't remember the details on that. Current, the last 30 years of dinosaur research are fascinating because so many things have changed and so many new stuff has happened.
A lot of stuff is with feathers too. A lot of dinosaurs they didn't think had feathers. Now they think they did. And,
yeah. Well, and some of them they don't. Ankylosaurus probably did not have feathers. It was a giant armored tank.
Yeah.
But the bird-like dinosaurs, yeah, certainly T-Rex probably had some kind of fluff on him.
Yeah. Which
not fully, but
yeah. Some plumage.
And it's likely that baby T-Rexes were more plumage.
Yeah, and they shed
chicks.
it over time. Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff too.
And also remember that feathers wouldn't look the way feathers do now.
And Matt, I'll say this: I probably would have enjoyed this a
lot
lot more
colorful.
if it had stuff like this in it, where I was actually learning stuff.
I mean, one of the disappointments of the Jurassic World movies is that they didn't update the dinosaur appearances to be what we know they look like.
Right.
And yeah, they get around it with it's a frog DNA. We're designing them. They're designer animals. We're designing them to look like what people expect them to look like.
Yeah.
But also one of the great things about the original Jurassic Park was it was one of the first times a movie had depicted, warm-blooded, active dinosaurs that behaved the way modern paleontology at the time believed that they behaved, and brought up the bird connection. Although the first movie I ever saw that brought up the dinosaur bird connection was actually Godzilla in 1985. Believe it or
Really?
not. He has a connection with birds in that movie that was theorized that dinosaurs and birds were closely related. So Japan was ahead of the game on that one.
Huh.
But that revolutionized how it revolutionized how people thought about dinosaurs in the popular culture because all of a sudden we knew the bird-like stuff was that. That's the other thing. When you go back and I remember a lot of people, including my parents, hated the beginning of Jurassic Park where Grant basically pretends to kill the kid that's questioning the raptors in the desert.
Yeah.
I'm like, first off, that kid was a dick. Second, the kid's well, it sounds more like a 6-foot turkey. A 6-foot turkey would be terrifying.
Yes, it would, dude.
6-foot turkey will kill your ass. Are you kidding?
I wouldn't mess with a normal turkey.
No, I wouldn't mess with a goose.
They go at your eyes.
If you've ever stared down a goose on the wrong side of the park trail, you know that birds are dinosaurs, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. So anyway, that is Jurassic.
Yeah, when do we get
World
our Untitled
Evolution.
Goose Game crossover?
Yeah.
With this, put that in as DLC. Just a goose comes in and just ruins everything. I'd be down for that.
That would be.
I'd
hilarious.
pay $5 for that.
That might be worth $60, but that game is not. That's a $30, $40 game.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
And also, honestly, there's independent games on PC that do the prehistoric animal park building thing better and more detailed and with more freedom.
Yeah.
And there's, I can't remember what the one is called, but a lot of people, if you ever see on almost any conversation about this game on Twitter, someone's going to say you should play this instead. And I can't remember what it was. I bet Rob Manuel knows. But it's basically, it's still probably in early access, but it's still very robust. I mean, you choose the level of the terrain in the pen, and you can paint this pen to look however you want it to, with different terrain types. And I mean, you can basically design how the park looks from the ground up.
And this does not do that.
No, not at all. You are very constrained.
And some of the missions, it's prefabbed. You go in and the stuff's already built, and you have to tear stuff down to try to make it work, and blah blah blah. It's not a bad game. It's not a good game either. But no matter what, it's not worth $60.
Yeah, it's just I find the interface very hard to penetrate. A lot of the time. It's just it
would be better
it's in its own way
on
a lot.
PC.
Yeah,
it would be way better. Playing it on a controller was a little awkward.
Yeah, buying it on Xbox was a mistake.
Yep.
I think. But also, I don't know if my PC would run this very well.
I also played this on Xbox. That's what they sent me the code for. And
I mean, they're definitely pushing it on Xbox as like
I mean, it mostly works with a controller, but
but also if you're going to play on PC, I think there are better park building games.
Yeah.
Like, why constrain yourself to that? Because one of the reasons this thing is so constrained is because they're trying to make it work on a console.
Oh, also we should
With a
mention, like,
controller.
the actors from the films aren't really involved. Like, Chris Pratt's not there. They have their likenesses. Like,
Well, several of them are. Jeff Goldblum's in it.
Goldblum's in it,
and
yeah. He narrates the whole
Bryce
thing.
Dallas Howard is in it.
The chick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron
Is that
Howard-
really her?
Yeah, it's really her.
Oh, it didn't sound like her.
Ron Howard's daughter is in it,
Yeah.
who directed a lot of good
I mean, I
Mandalorian.
know the thumb that they used to show her face looks like her.
Yeah.
And the thumb looks like Chris Pratt, too.
Yeah, it is. It's not him.
It's just
the
his
same. It's
voice
the same
isn't
guy.
him.
I think it's the same guy who, like, it's not a very good impression of him, but that guy does Chris Pratt in like all the games. Like he does.
Oh.
He does Chris Pratt in
That's his gig.
the Lego games.
Wow.
And
it doesn't even really sound like him.
the previous Jurassic Park Evolution. He's done Chris Pratt sound-alikes apparently, but I don't think he sounds.
Pratt's
very
too
much
busy
like
with
him.
Mario to voice this, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got Chris Pratt doesn't get out of bed for less than six figures. Come on, like, let's be honest. There's a couple other people. I think they got a couple people from the movies in there, but it doesn't matter. They're just yelling at you to.
Yeah,
do
there's
some
no
stupid-
cinematics with them. They're just their heads and voice samples.
Also, there's like the still cinematics in the beginning of the campaign.
Yeah, the animated.
But note that they very carefully do not show Chris Pratt's character in that.
So they don't have to pay for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
We paid for the little headshot, and that's it.
Yep. There you go. It's Jurassic World Evolution. It is available for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, $60. Don't buy it. I would pick this up in an indie sale 6-8 months from now. $30 max is what I would spend for it. Do you remember if they supported the last game with a lot of DLC?
Oh yeah,
and tweaks
there was a
afterwards?
lot. There was like two flights of DLC, as I
Okay,
recall. There's a
so this
fair
game will
amount.
probably get better.
Yeah.
Over time, and then you can probably get it cheaper for $30, and it makes more sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
They definitely. I mean, I think the full Monty of the first one was on sale for like 15 or something recently. Like it's a couple years old, but
Yeah. Yep. Okay, let's move on. You guys may not realize it, but we have a couple big anniversaries going on right now. We're not just talking about G4 relaunching today. We're also at the 1-year mark for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. And yesterday, on a side note, was the 20th anniversary of the original Xbox.
Yeah.
The OG Xbox.
I watched that stupid presentation thing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Was it stupid?
It was just like a very corporate sort of celebration of Xbox.
Here's Jay Allard. Here's Seamus Blackley.
Oh, they didn't show Jay Allard. No sex pests today. Thank you. I was actually a little impressed because they did talk about the errors at times. They did do there was a little section on the Red Ring of Death.
Even though that was Xbox 360, right?
Well, they're talking about the whole history of Xbox.
Oh,
They're talking
okay.
about all 20 years of Xbox.
Oh, gotcha.
And they the little Red Ring of Death section, and a little achievement popped up and said mistakes were made, kind of thing. Like they nodded towards it.
They had some fun. Yeah.
And they talked about the documentary that's coming, I think, this weekend. It's like hosted by Tina Wood, but that's not her name anymore. She has a married name now. I can't remember it. So,
old G4 person.
Yeah, so she was.
No, I mean old. She worked at the old G4.
She's old school.
Tina, you know I love you.
She's old school, but it's good to see her on camera again.
Yeah. Tina's new name is Summer
or something. Yeah, Summerfield or something.
Somerville
like
or something.
Yeah. So she's in that, and all the people that are involved, and Kevin Pereira's in it as a talking head kind of thing.
Yeah.
And looked interesting.
I tweeted yesterday that a lot of anniversaries make me feel old, but the anniversary of the Xbox does not for some reason. And I'm trying to figure out if it's because it's the only platform holder that has only existed as long as I've worked in the games industry.
Right. Well, I mean, sort of.
So I started, and then the Xbox launched like a year or two later.
Yeah, it was long. I mean, it launched like the tail end of my first year in it, because I started writing stuff for the Tech TV website in December 2000, and ended up started doing full freelance production work as part of the team in the mid 2001. So by the time that happened, I'd been to. I remember going to the GDC right when was that? It must have been right after, but it was right after the announcement of everything, and meeting Seamus Blackley at a party with Adam Sessler and some other people, and they kind of were introduced to me as the new kid, because I'd only been there for so long.
Yeah.
And I remember Seamus Blackley looking at me, he was like, keep these guys honest. And I'm just like, I will. And then he quit like 4 days later.
Someone needs to give you that advice.
Yeah.
It's so funny how these guys were such huge deals, Jay Allard and Seamus Blackley, and now they could walk down the street and no one would even know who they are. Like, it's bizarre.
I would know who Jay Allard was.
Well, we would.
I would be like, I'm still waiting to buy Velocity Girls t-shirt, dude. Where was that?
15 years later, later than that, longer than that, actually, I think, at this point. But for whatever reason, I did not feel old with the Xbox's 20th anniversary. I was like, that makes sense. That's right. That's true. That's good.
I mean, I guess it does feel 20 years ago. I mean, that's still pretty weird.
You still have your Xbox?
My original? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Me
It's
too.
hooked up.
Mine still works.
Yeah, mine still works. It was hooked up so I could play. What was I playing on? I was playing Obi-Wan.
There's so much weird stuff about it.
There's a lot of weird stuff.
The controller is weird.
The Duke.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that controller.
that big round bulbous one, the first one with the big Xbox logo on it, and then even the AV. They had these weird proprietary AV cables that had this huge interface you had to plug in. Like, it's just, it was so weird.
Well, I remember when we got the review units, and like basically like Miguel and I and a bunch of us had to play the hell out of everything to get it reviewed in time for the launch show, and I played Project Gotham Racing for like 6 hours straight. Yeah. And at one point, like, it was one of those, we would do that in the game lab, where like you go and you forget what time it is, and suddenly it's like 7. Yeah. And you're like, oh god, the day's over. Like,
yeah. There's no windows in the game lab.
Yeah, because there's no window. You came out and it was dark. You're like, oh. Yeah. But I think Miguel and I broke for dinner. Like, we're like, let's go get food because we've been doing this for all day. Yeah. And I remember those controllers were so big and so stiff that my index finger, because I'd been holding down the right trigger for the gas all the time. If you ever like hit your finger with a hammer or something, and the pain has that thing where it kind of feels like your finger's eternally rising up. Like your nail is trying to escape from your finger. Yeah. It felt like that.
Oh, geez.
Like I was like, my finger hurt. Like, it feels like I hit my finger with a hammer. Like,
remember it had those little dinky black and white buttons? Yeah. And those hurt. If you pressed down on those, it just felt like a needle was going into your...
Yeah, they're a little too small to be useful.
That controller
just
was
offset
so
enough
awful.
to be... And then when they did the revamp, they moved them down here and made them recessed. And I'm like, I can't even find them anymore.
That controller was so bad. Some people like it. I think it's
I like the
awful.
Duke. I prefer the big one to the revamp, the controller S or whatever it was called.
Really?
In part because
I love the S controller.
I prefer the big one.
Wow.
In part because that layout with the white and black buttons are annoying.
Offset sticks.
But no, they both had offset sticks. I like the face button layout better because of fighting games.
Okay. Because it was kind of flat. The Duke was like. Yeah. You can almost sit on
your
your lap, and it's so big, it was almost like an arcade stick.
The white and black are offset, but it is basically a 6-button layout. Yeah. And you move them down here, it gets weird.
Yeah, I can see that. So anyway, that's not even what we're here to talk about. That was just like a sidebar. But as we often do on GameFace, the sidebar can go off and last for quite a while. What we're really here to discuss is we want to do a year one report card for both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Give letter grades to each one, and pick which of the two we think has been the better console to own for the first year on the market. It's not easy. It's not simple. When I was taking a shower today, getting ready to come in here, when I do all my best thinking, I was like, man, that's a hard choice because they've both taken different approaches. Let's start with the PlayStation 5, Matt. What has been a pleasant surprise for you with the PlayStation 5, and what has been the thing that's disappointed you the most from its first year?
I mean, the hard drive size is still the most disappointing thing about that system to me.
I agree. And it's because we thought it might be an issue back when it launched, and would you say it's been more or less of an issue than you thought at first?
A little less, but still an issue.
For me, it's been more of an issue.
For you, I imagine because of the size of the shooters you play.
Yep. The size of the files. Yeah, I mean, when you have one game that's taking up 200 gigs, that's a third of your hard drive space.
Basically that and the production availability issues are the two big
issues with it.
Worst things about the system.
What about pleasant surprises for you?
I mean, I guess, I don't know, they're not surprises so much, but I have not been let down by the library.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. Ratchet and Clank delivered. Returnal was way better than I expected it to be.
I think they've been good. Yeah. It's the quantity that
I played a lot of stuff on the PS5, even stuff that was multi-platform. I don't ding something because I played, multi-platform. I don't ding Ghost of Tsushima again.
Because I already had a console that could play that stuff.
Not that well. Doesn't look like that.
It doesn't, but I'll be honest, man. Like, for a lot of the third-party stuff, I don't think the PS5 version looks all that much better than the PS4 Pro. Like, I played most of Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, on my PS4 Pro, and then in the middle of playing it, I got the PS5, and I don't know, man. Like, it didn't look that much better, and I think that's pretty much true for a lot of the third-party stuff that's coming out for both of them. Like, that is my big disappointment, is the lack of... I play
most of the third-party stuff on the Xbox. So I don't but Valhalla, while it doesn't look all that different between the Xbox One X and the Series X, it runs way better.
Yeah, that does make a difference, for sure.
The smoother performance and the faster load times are worth it to me. That's the other nice thing about how the change in load times on the PS5 is very noticeable, and I appreciate that.
Yep. For both consoles, that's been a pleasant surprise. For sure. I didn't think I would appreciate it as much as I do.
No, I didn't really care about load time, but like it does make a difference.
Yep.
And even in Ghost of Tsushima, which almost had no load time already on the PS4 Pro, but it is still noticeable on that.
Yep, for sure.
It's interesting.
But for me, the lack of exclusives that run just on PS5, the lack of quantity for those, I will agree with you. What has been released has been incredible. I enjoyed Returnal. I've never really enjoyed roguelikes before. I enjoyed playing that game. I liked Deathloop a lot. It's a better
Metroid game than Metroid Dread.
It is, absolutely. But the quantity of exclusives for PS5, I very rarely did I find myself really happy that I had a PS5 in its first year. Like, it was almost more of like, I've got one and I know other people want them, and that made me feel special, but not actually using the device.
I think between both Spider-Mans and Demon's Souls and Returnal and Ratchet, and I liked Kena. I
was through that in like a day.
Yeah, like it was fun. It was nice. Goes Astro's Mission. Nice surprise. I mean, that was free, but it was nice game.
Yep.
I'd like to see them expand that further. I'm happy with it. Like, it hasn't blown me out the back of the theater or anything, but
it's not like I regret getting it or anything like that. We were talking about what things have disappointed.
If it was super available now and like you just walk in a store and buy a PS5, I wouldn't be upset that I didn't wait until now or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy with it. I use the Xbox more, but that's largely because of the storage space.
That's a big part of it. My pleasant surprise for the PlayStation 5 has been the DualSense controller. I completely underestimated how important it was going to be. Now, I do turn off a lot of its features when I'm playing games where I care about being competitive. But if I have the choice of playing a game on my Series X or my PS5, storage space, not an issue, I'll play PS5 every time. Because of that controller, the DualSense. It adds something to games that I'm still not getting on Xbox.
Yeah, I never think about the controller.
Really?
I do not like the haptic feedback thing mostly.
Oh, I do.
I find it distracting. Because I don't stop simulating footsteps on controllers. Like, I don't.
No, that's weird.
I don't feel. I mean, the Xbox does that sometimes too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It doesn't really add anything to me.
Using weapons, I think, especially if you play games that have a bunch of different weapons, and seeing how the haptic feedback works differently for each weapon, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, but then I turn it off because I don't want to deal with it anymore.
That's funny. Well, to me, that was one of the pleasant surprises of the PS5. Let's switch over to Xbox Series. What has been your disappointment with Xbox Series so far, if any?
The main disappointment is that none of the, not that it's unexpected necessarily, but none of the new studios they've bought have paid off yet.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for
all
this content from all these all these acquired studios who we know is going to, I'm pretty sure like 90% of it's going to be great, but it's not here yet. We're still stuck with Forza and Halo.
Well, think about this. The irony is that they buy Bethesda, and Bethesda proceeds to release an exclusive game for PlayStation. Yeah. That's the crazy part. I mean, that's bonkers to me.
Well, the deal was already in place. So.
But you are right. We're still in that same cycle of Halo, Gears, Forza.
Yeah.
It's yet to break out of it. I do believe next year.
Yeah,
finally,
we'll break it next year. But right now,
you're right. It's been another year like we've had on Xbox for the last 8 years straight or however long it's been. I was surprised to see that Xbox One sold 50 million units. Did you see that? Did you see Xbox One sold 50 million units?
That's a lot.
I was surprised by that.
I mean, you can get it, so that's probably part of it.
Yeah. So that has been... The lack of software continues to be a problem for Microsoft. It is remedying it, but I thought that Hellblade would be out by now.
Yeah, I did think Hellblade would be this year.
I mean, there's a few games that I thought we would have got this year that we didn't get. We still, as you said, we haven't seen any of the fruit of all those acquisitions. They're coming. So those are some disappointments. What are some things you've been pleasantly surprised by, though?
I think just in general, the performance of everything on it, everything runs pretty, unless you're dealing with something that is kind of across the board, across the platforms, technically broken, GTA. Everything runs pretty well. The backwards compatibility stuff has been, pretty rock solid. It all hangs together.
I'm pleasantly surprised by the fact it's become my daily driver.
Yeah.
It is the console I use the most. I never would have guessed that. And even...
I honestly would use both of them pretty equally if the storage space wasn't an issue.
It's really amazing how big a deal the storage space has become. I don't want to spend $400 to expand my PS5's hard drive. I just don't.
No.
That's
I mean,
insane.
I stuck an SSD external on it.
I could buy a friend or a relative a PS5 for that.
I stuck an SSD external on it, to put the PS4 games on,
and it's
which helps.
Good enough or whatever. Yeah.
But I'm also not installing 140 gigs worth of Call of Duty on the thing. So.
Yeah. I am shocked that my Series X is my daily driver. It's when in between the fact that it has a bigger hard drive space, the fact that a lot of times when I go to get review code from PR people suck up the PS5 codes right away. A lot of times I get an Xbox code anyway. I have the space for it. Game Pass has become a thing for me that I didn't anticipate becoming a thing for me. I will say this. I was having problems with my Series X losing sync with my TV. It had disappeared for the last 2 months, and it came back last night. I don't know why, but I was playing Halo Infinite Online, which we're going to get to here in a minute, and the screen would just go black while I was playing. I was like, oh, it's back. So there's something in the hardware that is having problems, connecting to my television. I don't know if this is an isolated thing that I deal with.
Mine does that. It blacks out once in a while, but usually it's something. It's a resolution switching thing. It's something that's just not communicating right. Usually the way usually it only happens a little bit and it stops. Especially
it goes off for 4 seconds and comes back on.
It doesn't usually go off that long, but it's more of a split second to 1 second. But sometimes it'll do it constantly. It'll do every few, almost more black than screen. And if that happens, I have to restart the system, and that usually fixes it for quite some time.
Yep. I found myself using the backwards compatibility on my Series X way more than my PS5 because I know I can just stick a disc in it, and it's going to work. And that may actually work on my PS5 too. But for whatever reason, mentally, I've just accepted that works. It works the best on Xbox, and so why mess around with PlayStation and plus my retro library from the 360 era, all Xbox. So, for me, that era, Xbox 360, I have hundreds of games. PS3, I have exclusives, and that's it. I have 30 PS3 games and hundreds of Xbox 360. And so that backwards compatibility means more to me. I'm a little disappointed in the controller, ultimately, for Series X. It didn't really do anything. There's nothing special about it compared to what I was playing with on Xbox One. And I think Microsoft got caught a little flat-footed there.
I don't think they did because I don't think the DualSense matters.
You don't?
No.
I wonder what chat thinks about that. If our chat thinks that haptic feedback and all this stuff DualSense does makes any difference to them. The problem is that most people in our chat are going to have one or the other. They're not going to have both.
Right. But I honestly, the haptic feedback, it never enters my mind.
Huh.
In fact, the only time I've even thought about it recently was when I was thinking about maybe playing Riders Republic, and you said that the haptic feedback helped with the feeling the bike on the road and stuff. And I was like, I should get that on PS5. Then I realized I didn't have room to install it, so I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
So Ubisoft lost a sale because of haptic feedback and a lack of storage space on the PS5.
That's crazy.
Because I didn't want to turn around and get it on the Xbox One or the Xbox Series because it doesn't have the feedback.
Yeah.
So yeah, the features, the additional feature plus the shortcoming lost Ubisoft a sale.
That's crazy.
Well done, Sony.
Well, I do care about that stuff, and Microsoft's controller is far behind the DualSense controller. I have a feeling that that's going to be remedied here.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, I think Forza Horizon 5 has really good rumble.
It's good. It's not the DualSense, though.
It's less annoying than the DualSense to me.
Interesting. I think, I don't know. I
recognize the DualSense is a more technologically advanced piece of hardware, but I don't find it useful or interesting or immersive.
Huh.
I find it distracting and annoying.
Wow.
It does nothing for me.
See, I found that about the Xbox controller, because what I found
the Xbox controller does it too.
It's like it will just sit there and go, eh.
I mean, the Xbox controller does that too. Like, I don't think rumble is a useful thing for the most part.
Really?
I don't find it very, and I think it's overused. I think it can be
I would agree with that.
I think it can be used effectively in
effective.
certain elements, but it's like if you're doing things where, like, you know, the Elite is bad about that too, because the Elite makes a weird whiny noise when it buzzes at a certain frequency, and sometimes you get that there's like
it just goes, it just goes
like, shut up.
That's
like,
what I was talking about a minute ago. Yeah.
The other problem is the other problem I have with rumble is that, like, on something like the what you call it, the makes your hands itchy. I like that.
This is interesting. Actually, let's go to chat here, because people have some interesting comments on this stuff.
The extreme amounts of rumble burn out my rechargeable batteries in my Xbox controllers faster. Like, Forza Horizon 5 goes through a rechargeable battery set a day.
Really?
Usually it lasts like 4 days.
Well, one thing I will say is that the battery life on the Xbox controller versus the PlayStation controller, it's night and day. I can charge my Xbox controller and I can play with it for like a month.
Yeah, usually that is true. That is true.
I have to constantly charge the DualSense, and that is my biggest complaint with the DualSense.
No, usually that is true, but the Forza, and still lasting long, because I can't play unplugged the DualSense for a day because it'll burn. And I think that's largely because of the rumble. Because, like, if the rumble's really engaged, like in Forza or another game like that with on Xbox, like those rechargeable batteries are gone in hours. And on a normal game, if I'm playing like a game with like a normal amount of rumble, like they'll last a week.
Sneaky says that he has the same problem with his TV and his Xbox. Yeah, it doesn't happen on my PS5 at all. Only on my Xbox.
No, I've seen that as a problem on Xbox. I've seen it mentioned on Reddit.
I don't get
and stuff.
it. Like, why can't they fix it? ETH Demon, Xbox controllers have been my preferred since 360. Commander Fett, give me haptic feedback on my mouse and keyboard. Yeah, so I guess he's saying he likes PS5 and wishes it came to more.
Or maybe he likes the concept but wants it on a control scheme he uses.
That's true. JM Rain 99, what's up, brother? Says I have both. I enjoy the PS5 controller and would like for it to be the standard. However, it is not a deal maker for me. Okay, I can get that. Haptic feedback on Horizon 5 is great. There isn't haptic feedback.
There is if you play it on PC.
Oh, okay. Justin Horman, I have 2 DualSense controllers, no PS5 yet. LOL. That is LOL. What are you doing, bro? Oh, he's trying to use it on his PC, I guess. No PC games that do DualSense haptic feedback yet either. Okay. Erebus Jones, haptic sounds cool, but not a deal breaker. The sticks being offset is a bigger deal for me.
Yeah, that is. I do prefer the offset sticks.
Can totally get that. But I've not tried a PS5. Wow. Man, you haven't tried it yet, huh?
Although I did briefly consider buying the GTA collection on PS5 because I played those games with PlayStation controllers so much that I kind of felt like continuity. But I didn't.
That's crazy.
I got an Xbox.
Andy T. Monahan says Last of Us 2 is okay playing guitar. Yeah,
that was cool.
That was cool how they did that.
It's other things like it's the little like I love that Ghost of Tsushima uses the vibration to create flute notes.
Yeah.
It plays music with the vibrations.
Well, it's
That's
kind of
cool.
like that one road. Is it in Arizona where you drive at a very specific speed and it plays a song?
But the vibrations mirror the notes of the flute he's playing, so it kind of plays the music out of your controller. That's cool. But also, I'm not trying to play the game when it's doing that. Like, it's just doing a cool little thing. I'm like, oh, that's neat. But if it was doing that if it tried to simulate like the swish of a sword every time I hit the attack button, I'd throw it through the wall.
Yeah. Sneaky says, DualSense is a fantastic extra to me. I love the audio from games. The built-in mic and triggers are great for Fortnite. The built-in mic and speaker on the PS5. I hate games that turn it on by default. Like we were playing It Takes Two. Yeah. I didn't even know that you could hear me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that happens to me all the time. Because a lot of games by default, Call of Duty Vanguard, no, doesn't matter. every time you reboot it again, it will automatically turn it on. I don't even know. People will be like, "Din fire, turn off your mic." And I'm like, "Oop, we got to hit the button again." It is handy though. Like, I like that there's a mic and a speaker on it, so you don't have to use a headset if you don't want to. I just wish games would turn it off by default, so I don't have to keep turning it off.
Yeah, it feels
manually.
like that should definitely be something you would opt into.
Yeah. More theme and also offset sticks is a deal breaker. And I think that's it. Yep. Okay. Great comments as always from the chat. Matt, which one have you enjoyed more in its first year? It's a tough call.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really. It doesn't have anything to do with the hardware, does it? It's just the games.
Well, right.
And I've chosen to play. I'm sure I would have enjoyed Valhalla just as much on PS5, but I didn't choose to put it on PS5.
Mm-hmm.
I played it on Xbox. Like, in terms of exclusives, I think, the things that I can only play on one system, PS5 runs away with it. Because the Xbox doesn't have any of that stuff ready yet.
Yeah.
Talk to me in a year, and it might be different because we're going to get, maybe Hellblade or Outer Worlds 2 or whatever the hell. Avowed somewhere along the line.
I mean, there's been some pretty good exclusives. We just got Forza Horizon 5.
Forza's great.
I mean, Halo's going to be here in a week.
We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a really hard call because I agree with you. The exclusive software on PS5 I've enjoyed more. Like, I really appreciate that I was able to play Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Mm-hmm. Like, the time that I spent playing that, it feels important and special to me. And I don't know that I've replicated that yet on Xbox Series X. Mm-hmm. But I've spent so much more time playing my Xbox Series X that I've built, as I've talked about before, a relationship with the console where it's like my bro. Like, I have an affinity for it, whereas the PS5 is this thing that just kind of comes into my life for like 5 days and then it disappears again for another month and a half or 2 months, whereas Xbox is always there and I'm always using it. So, man, first of all, first thing I should say is kudos to both companies, because for a first year for consoles, both of them have been pretty amazing. We've got a good selection of exclusive games for both of them. The amount of just software in general, because they are backwards compatible, is amazing. Obviously, Game Pass is this new gateway to experience games and sample games we haven't had before. So I would say both of them have done great. And they're both, I think, worthy. Like, I don't regret buying either for $550. I'm totally cool with the money I spent for both of them. But I think if someone asked me, like, if I could have only had one for the last year, which one would it have been? I think it would have been Xbox Series X. Like, would I sacrifice the time I spent playing Spider-Man and Ratchet and the 2 hours I spent playing Demon's Souls and the good bit chunk of time I spent playing Returnal for the dozens and dozens of hours I've spent playing my Xbox? I don't know if I would.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I have certainly played the Xbox more, but I could have done almost everything I did on the Xbox I could have done on the PS5.
You could have done.
I just would have had to juggle some more installs back and forth.
You had to have spent a lot more money because you didn't have Game Pass there. You'd have to buy the games outright instead of just downloading them for $13 a month or whatever.
Somewhat.
And I wouldn't have played those games. I would not have bought those games for full price.
Yeah.
But I ended up playing them and enjoying them because...
But the stuff I really dug into and played the longest
on PS5.
Were things I bought.
Yeah. I hear you. It's a tough call.
Like, I don't have that kind of attachment to the hardware.
Yeah.
Really. Like, it's I don't care what I play something on. Obviously, exclusives are exclusives and all, but, like, I have no affinity or affection for my Xbox Series X because I play it more. Like, it's just what I play things on because it's convenient. Mm-hmm. So no, in terms of, again, I'm still, I'm going to tell you, if you have both of them in front of you and you can only buy one of them, buy a PS5.
You would still recommend PS5?
Yeah, because PS5 has amazing stuff coming. It's like okay, we don't know quite what's coming next year for Xbox, but there's probably some pretty good stuff. But we know for certain that in the first half of the next year you're going to play Horizon 2, and then God of War is coming. Like, it's like,
do we?
Yeah.
The way delays have been happening anymore,
Horizon will be out in February,
no
question. God of War, I think, is going to be their holiday game.
Maybe,
but. The PS5 has the more guaranteed strong upfront library, and we still don't quite. Xbox is gonna be great eventually, but eventually could be years.
I think my grades for the first year I'd give Xbox Series X a B+, and PS5 a B.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're both Bs.
I think they're both great. I think we're spoiled. We're very lucky to have these two pieces of hardware that have a crazy supply of software for both of them, that really have had no major issues. There's no red ring of death or anything like that.
Outside of the occasional bricking the first week or so of PS5.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But they dealt with that pretty fast.
Yeah, but otherwise, like, the hardware hasn't been buggy. They're trying to find ways to make it cheaper so they can manufacture more. Supply chain has really been the biggest issue. But that's a problem with everything because of the pandemic. So I think both companies have done an amazing job. And I don't think you can go wrong buying either one, honestly. And I don't think you could have gone wrong buying either one for this and having it for this past year. Like, I just think either one that you could have got would have serviced you well.
Yeah,
for the
I
last
would have
12
felt
months.
like I was missing out on stuff if I didn't have a PS5.
You have FOMO over, like, Ratchet or something like that?
For sure.
Yeah.
Or Spider-Man. Or
Yeah.
any of that. Obviously some of that can be played on PS4, but it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, it's true. Regardless, we're all winners because we have two great platforms. Both are healthy. Both are thriving. They're not the same. So I believe there's also some incentive to have both.
Yeah.
There's reasons to own both. It's a good situation for us to be in as players. Let's just put it that way. We are really spoiled right now. And as Matt said, it's only going to get better. It's going to be a great year for PS5 next year. It's also going to be a great year for Xbox Series X. They're going to have games finally. So, yeah, it's been a great first year for both of those consoles, both Gen 9 consoles. Just feel very fortunate to own both on a personal level. I know a lot of people out there can't. I know a lot of people have gone through some tough times with COVID, losing jobs and things like that. And so I feel very fortunate to be able to have both and to have played both. And it's only going to get better. So here's to year 2 of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And hopefully you guys are all along for the ride with us. Not cert. The only PS5 game I played this year is Miles and Returnal. I think that's... You didn't play Ratchet.
At least he's getting Ratchet for Black Friday.
You should have played that first. In my humble opinion. Game's amazing. It's the technical marvel. It's the game that, like, oh, that's why I spent $550 on this thing that sits underneath my television. Anyway, all right. It's time to move on to the last topic of episode 279. And this was just a gift from the heavens that fell into our laps yesterday. Although it wasn't completely out of the blue, because
we knew about this.
Rumors had been flying around for a few days about it. And yesterday, on the 20th anniversary of Xbox, Microsoft shadow dropped the multiplayer for Halo Infinite. And it wasn't just like, hey, here's a little beta you can fiddle. It's the whole suite. Mm-hmm. It is what was planned to be launched with the campaign on December 8th. Is that right? When the campaign's coming, I think. Yeah. And they're just like, you know what? It's done. Let's just give it to people. And that's awesome. Matt, how much time did you get to spend with it?
A couple hours. I played a few rounds.
I played a lot.
Took a long time. I wasn't home much yesterday, and it took a long time just to get it. I couldn't get it up and running. Basically, I left it to update itself, and then when I got home, it wouldn't open. It would be like, oh, something went wrong. Try again later. I was like, okay. So eventually, I figured out I could launch it from the store page, and it would open. And then I played for a while. That was about it. Just enough to know, like, whether just enough to know how it felt. It's good. That was enough.
Yeah, it was perfect timing because it was the 20th anniversary of Xbox. I put out my emotional tweet about how it didn't make me feel old and actually made me feel a little bit young. And then an hour later, there's the brand new Halo. And you got to realize Halo is what kept Xbox alive in that first generation. If it weren't for Halo, there would be no Xbox Series X. There would be no Xbox 360. There just wouldn't.
Well, there would have been.
You think?
Microsoft was
willing to lose much money?
That was what reportedly what Bill Gates said when they started that. It was like we need to own the living room, and I don't care how much money it costs. Like they were going to make that system until somebody pulled the plug way up high.
Well, there's nobody higher than Bill Gates, so at least back then, especially.
Yeah, back
now
then.
There are, but back then there weren't.
Yeah, they would have kept going. I think, but they would have a much more uphill battle without
okay,
Halo
let me
being
rephrase
the cultural phenomenon it became.
The original Xbox would have been a miserable failure if it were not for Halo.
Yeah, it would have been another Saturn.
Yeah, I mean, it would
I
have
love
just
the Saturn.
died on the vine.
You can't sell a game console on the back of Nightcaster.
Think about the launch games for Xbox.
The launch games were
abysmal. Terrible.
Other than Halo and Project Gotham.
Yeah, that was it. So, for a lot of reasons, releasing this yesterday on the 20th anniversary of Xbox was appropriate and hit me in the feels in a couple ways. And then I started playing. And it took me right back to 20 years ago. I'll say this. Playing Halo Infinite's multiplayer, it reminded me, I will often say like, oh, another year, another Call of Duty, and shooters haven't changed that much, they haven't really evolved that much. Oh yes, they have. After playing Halo Infinite yesterday, I was reminded of how much shooters have changed. Now I'm not saying they've changed for the better or for the worse, they've just changed a lot. And in some ways, Halo now feels like a throwback, which is ironic because it was this bleeding edge next level whatever when it came out. It was like
it was the thing that even like PC snobs were like, I
want
to play that.
Yeah, I got to play that. Like, I was playing Tribes at the time, and when I first saw Halo, I was like, oh, that's like half a Tribes or whatever, because you still couldn't fly in Halo, like you could in Tribes where you have a jetpack. But even I played Halo and was like, this is still really good, even though it's not, as robust as Tribes was at the time. But I could sit on my couch and play it, and I didn't need a Voodoo 2 card. I have to sit in the corner of my PC on a computer chair and blah, blah, blah. And my friends were more apt to play Halo because they didn't have to have a gaming PC with a Voodoo 2 card to play it. They could just buy an Xbox for $250 or whatever, and they could play it. And it was a revelation. Now you play it, and it does not feel like an old game, though. I want to make that clear.
No.
This game is very slick, very smooth.
Smooth is definitely the word that kept coming to mind.
Yeah. The frame rate...
Which is not something you could say about Halo at all times.
No. Frame rate, rock solid. I will say this. It's not as good looking as I thought it might be, but it's still really good looking. It does make me a little concerned for the campaign, though.
I think the campaign's going to look very different.
It probably will... I think the multiplayer in this looks like the first look at the campaign.
A little bit.
Yeah. And now they've dialed stuff up for the campaign. I think they've left it there for the multiplayer. It still looks amazing and runs like a beast. Like, I never saw anything fluctuate. And crazy stuff is happening all the time in this, which is what I loved, and I had forgotten about it, is just the mayhem. What did you spend most of your time playing?
I was mostly...
You played big team battle or the smaller
I
games?
played like one big team battle and a couple of 4v4 things.
Pretty much, I played like 2 4v4 matches, and then I went big team battle and just rocked that for the whole rest of the day and all last night. Because that, to me, is the Halo experience. When you've got a huge map, tons of vehicles, 24 characters, all the guns, all the abilities now. I had to kind of relearn how to play Halo. I had not played Halo multiplayer for, even with Halo 5, I probably only played it for like 15 hours, 20 hours. I almost played that yesterday on Halo Infinite. Between, like, I worked for a couple hours, I'd play for an hour, I'd work for an hour, I'd play for 2 hours. I was just kind of jumping back and forth between work and Halo Infinite all day yesterday. And I enjoyed the living crap out of it, man. I'm hooked. I am totally hooked. How did you feel about it overall?
I enjoyed it. It's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on, but...
Is it too samey?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't break the I've done it before mold, because like basically early on I was like, oh yeah, it was kind of like pleasant feelings of like, I remember this, and like, oh, I remember the feeling, that feeling of getting their shield down and then getting that final shot in before they can kill you, and like,
or the land in the melee. You're both running at each other, thing, and you lay in the melee and get the kill, and so then everything goes flying, all those grenades and everything.
So there's was an element of like, oh yeah, this I remember, all this. And then like by the end of that, I was like, yep, this is the same fucking game I was sick of, 10 years ago. I mean, it runs very well. It's fun in that regard. It is not something that's going to change my I don't care about multiplayer habits.
But did you enjoy playing a shooter for at least a few fleeting moments?
Yeah.
Wow.
I enjoyed.
That's great.
I enjoyed playing the old Halos and stuff, and The most interesting thing about it to me was that my old online group doesn't play together anymore. Mm-hmm. People have moved on to other things, but every single one of them was playing this.
Were they? Night. That's cool.
Not together.
Yeah, but they were on there.
A bunch of them don't talk to each other anymore. But they were all playing this.
Yeah, it was odd for me.
Some of it was like, oh, good, they're not dead.
It was odd for me to play a shooter where you don't start out with a loadout. Where you don't, before the match starts, go in and choose the guns that you want, all the attachments you want, any abilities that you want, any of that stuff. You start each match as just a Spartan. And you have to collect everything in the map. That is so alien now.
Because you don't play Fortnite.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, you're right,
Smart.
though. You're right, though. Fortnite is...
That's the thing now, though.
It is
kind of back to that.
Yeah. It's like everything came full circle.
Yeah.
Waiting to respawn, like after you die, and sitting there and having to watch the counter tick down again, like that's not a part of shooters anymore. You die in all shooters now, you hit the friggin' square button, and you're right back in the fight. You don't sit and like wait for the stuff to count down. Just remembering how you have to memorize the maps, where all the weapons are, like where's the sniper rifle, where's the rocket launcher, where's the needler, like. Each map, has different placement, and by the end of the day, I had learned where a lot of that stuff was, and I had become parts of the races to get to the weapons, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to have to do in a shooter in 2021. I enjoyed it for nostalgic purposes yesterday. I don't know if I'll enjoy that over the long haul.
Yeah, the big question does seem to be, will the staying power be there once the nostalgia wears off?
Because the vehicles, too. It's like the match starts, it's a mad dash to get to the vehicles. And if you don't get one, you're a sitting duck for the first 20% of that match. And if you die, you got to hope that there's a vehicle sitting there that's respawned so you can jump in it and take off. Because it's a huge advantage to be in a vehicle versus not being in a vehicle. All this stuff has been kind of excised from shooters other than Battlefield for years now. A lot of shooters don't even have vehicles anymore. I played mostly big team battle with 24 players. It was just mania. Just crazy stuff happening all over the place. That's what I love about Halo multiplayer, is it's just mayhem. Especially if you get on one of these maps that isn't just gigantic and it's only kind of gigantic and people are compressed in and they're forced to fight a little bit more. Man, stuff gets so hectic, and there's just, getting back to... you have 2 grenades with every spawn, and picking up grenades if you want a sticky grenade or some other kind of a grenade. All that stuff I had forgotten about, and I really enjoyed doing it yesterday, all day long. I ended up having to customize my control scheme because the grenades by default are on the left bumper instead of the right bumper, and now through all these years, I'm used to having grenades on the right bumper, so I had to go in and set it up and change it to that way. Character customization, that's definitely something that's lacking in this. I mean, you're basically just all Master Chief with different paint jobs. Mm-hmm. And with other shooters now, they all have, hero shooters, obviously, have completely different characters.
Yeah, well, there's tons of different armor, but it's all, unlockable, and it's all, seasoned stuff, and it's gonna...
In all Ultimate, you still end up looking like a Master Chief with a different, elbow or whatever. It doesn't...
I mean, it's like this, the Recon one looks different, the Samurai one looks different. I mean, eventually it'll be a little more differentiated as time goes on.
It will, but... stuff. It's still never going to be as differentiated as most shooters in 2020.
I bet they'll add in other things, and you can...
They could. But it is insane.
Probably have elites in there at some point.
It is insane because, you have a piece of armor for, your hand. There's 20 different pieces of armor that you set up in this game, and you can choose and customize and paint and put stickers on it and blah, blah, blah. But still, at the end of the day, when the match ends and your team is standing there, they all look pretty much the same. They're a different color.
Yeah, well, it is an army.
Yeah, I guess. It just, again, it's just something that stands out for a shooter in 2021. Also, the limited traversal, there's no sliding. There's not that much. The clamoring.
Where's the grappling hooks?
What'd you say?
Where's the grappling hooks?
They're in here, but it's an ability. And that's really the biggest, where this franchise has evolved the most, is the abilities. And I'll fully admit, it took me half the day before I really started using them. Because, like the weapons, you have to pick them up out in the field. You don't choose what ability you want before the match starts. You find them out in the field. And so it does allow you to try them all. I went through all of them yesterday at different points. But it doesn't let you find one that you really like and then always use it. And a lot of times I can't. You pick something up, you get the icon. I don't know what the icons mean yet, so I'm just like, screw it. Let me hit my ability button and see what I got. Oh, this is something that gives me a shield for 5 seconds. Oh, there's the grappling hook. I was hoping I'd finally get to use it and check it out. It's very different from shooters that most people have been playing for a long time. One thing that I did not like very much is that you can never stay on a server. So a match ends, you can't just sit there and wait for the next match to start. You get booted out, you have to go and select start again. The time between matches compared to like Call of Duty is an eternity. That's something that they're going to need to fix. That is part of the secret sauce of Call of Duty that Activision has figured out, is you need to get in and out of matches really fast. It's glacier slow compared to most shooters. There's, I don't know, probably from the time a match ends to the time you finally get to the next match, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2.5, 3 minutes. It takes a really long time to get out of one and into another.
Yeah, it did seem about that to me. I don't have any frame of reference on how long it's supposed to take these days.
Call of Duty, it's like lightning. Like, you're done, and like half the time, you don't even have time to like get up and get a drink from the fridge before the next match is starting, which can be a little annoying. So it'd be nice if they can speed up the time between rounds so you don't feel like there's these huge breaks in between each match. As far as the modes were concerned, there was Slayer, Capture the Flag, a mode called Total Control, where there are 3 different flag points, and you have to hold all 3, and you have to do that 3 times before you win the match. And there was a mode called Stockpile, where you go to the enemy's base, and you do like a context-sensitive thing where you pull these seeds out of their base, and then you have to return them to your base and like deposit them. But while you're up there, it takes forever. You hold the X button, and it takes, I don't know, like 15, 20 seconds before you can get one of the seeds. So you have to have somebody there defending you while you're getting the seed. Hope you have like a warthog or something out back to jump in and go back to your base. And the team who captures the most seeds wins. And I think that was pretty much it for the modes. The modes are definitely low compared to most shooters at this point. There's also a ranked arena, which I didn't mess around with too much because I'm still just not back up to scratch as far as my skill level yet. So I haven't played any ranked yet. There's no character leveling, which again is weird. There's no weapon leveling, which is something that's in every shooter. There's just the battle pass. And I played all day yesterday and only got to level 3. You do that.
Leveling is very slow.
You do that in Call of Duty in like a match, like a single match. You can go from level 1 to level 3. And this, it took me all day because it's all just tied into the battle pass. You actually don't really level up. You're just going through levels of the battle pass. What else? I think that's it. There's bottomless pits in this game. I haven't played a shooter that had bottomless pits that I could fall into and die, and I don't know how long. There's just so many things about this that are so different, and in a lot of ways, very refreshing from what I've been playing for the last several years. But to your point, Matt, I'm not sure exactly how long that's going to last, when it will wear off. What about you? Are you kind of wearing thin on it a little bit by the time you wrapped up?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah. I'm interested in the campaign now, just in the sense that, like, oh, this feels pretty good to play, so I'm interested to try it. Me
too. Yeah, playing this definitely made me more excited to play the campaign, for sure. And to play more of the multiplayer. I'm going to keep playing it. Like, I have not really resonated with Call of Duty Vanguard, and I'm going to need something to play. This might be it. This might be the thing that I end up playing.
This or Battlefield.
Yeah, and Battlefield's coming soon. I think the Battlefield multiplayer just launched on Game Pass today. There's like a 10-day period or something, 10-hour period. I think you can play it early before it comes out. And I think that just launched today on Game Pass. So I might check that out here in the next day or two. But I had a blast playing this. I had a ton of fun. The new weapons and the new vehicles, whatever, they weren't a big deal to me. None of them really stood out or made an impact. But I just had a ton of fun. I just chucking tons of grenades again. Like, I just haven't played a game where there's grenades everywhere. You start with 2 of them, and you're encouraged, and you should use them habitually. And it was just fun to get into that loop again, that the bunny hop, side strafe, leading the enemy with the grenade, and it's fun. So it was good to get back in the battlegrounds, on the Halo battlegrounds. And I look forward to playing some more. And I am Dinfire on Xbox Live. Send me a friend request. I accept everybody. and we'll get together maybe this weekend, and we'll play some Halo Infinite multiplayer. But so far, what I've played so far, so really freaking good. I'm really having a lot of fun with it. I even kind of dominated playing this at times. Like this capture the flag that we're seeing right now, I captured all 3 times for our team. All 3 flags and won the match. And my KD when I first started was terrible, but by the end of the day yesterday, I was finishing most matches like 15-5, 20-8, stuff like that. So I'm starting to figure it out. It did take a while though. There's like muscle memory there playing Halo, and it took a little while for me to get back into the groove, but ultimately, I had a blast, and I think I'm going to continue to have a blast. So again, I'm Dinfire on Xbox Live. If you want to add me and play some Halo, please do. I'm looking for some people to squad up with and play with over the next week or so. And I do like the idea too, Matt, that I'm getting the multiplayer out of the way, and the campaign comes out here in a few weeks, and I can just dive right into that, and we'll be basically done with the Halo suite. I didn't mess around with any of the like firing range stuff, did you?
No.
Yeah, I didn't do it either.
Like I played like the tutorial bot thing.
Oh, you did?
A little bit, which is just they throw four players in against bots to like kind of familiarize yourself.
Yeah.
Which is good if you want to learn what modes do what.
Yep.
But like I pretty much knew what they were, or you know they're not that complicated.
Yep.
So I did one of those, and I think I went like 30-0. Like I got a badge for getting more than 15 kills and not dying once. So I'm like, that was a good achievement. But like against bots. But like then I just went into the multiplayer after that. It was.
I'll tell you one thing I do like too about this game is that you get achievements for multiplayer. Like most shooters, you could play it for like 1,000 hours, and you may get like 4 achievements. Mm-hmm. They always load them into like the campaigns or whatever. You get achievements in this for like putting a sticker on your armor. Like I have them turned off, but I can hear them popping because I have my PC open while I'm playing. I have notifications turned off on my Xbox, but they're on the Xbox app on my PC. So I hear them pop on my PC, and just like customizing your Spartan, like you're just pop.
Almost every customization thing gives you an achievement.
Yeah, gives you something. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's Halo Infinite multiplayer. I really like it. Again, add me on Xbox Live at Dinfire, and we will play. And I will plant the butt of my battle rifle in between your eyes.
Well, it should be back of your skull, because that's the instant kill.
That's true. Okay. It's time for Name That Game, people. And it's a special edition of Name That Game, because one of your fellow sifters created a song/jingle for Name That Game. This is courtesy of Sneaky Shalid Shanake. Pretty good, huh? Big thanks to him. He had said he was going to do that last week, and he absolutely came through. And so now we have a little theme song for Name That Game, which is awesome. I also listened to your feedback from last week, and I've turned down the volume of the ticking clock because apparently it was driving people crazy. So I have turned down the volume of the ticking clock. Hopefully it's acceptable at this point. For those of you who maybe aren't on the stream or have never seen this before, keep your butt away from my face, Justin Horman. For those of you who maybe do not watch the stream and have no idea what Name That Game is, it's a little quiz show that we do at the end of every episode of GameFace where you try to beat Matt Kyle. I give you a series of clues, and you try to guess just the name of the game. What game am I trying to get you guys to say? Matt, you've won, what, twice?
Twice, I think, yeah.
Something like that. You guys win all ties. I know you're sitting there maybe, what with the delay on Twitch and whatnot. If it's close, you guys win, which doesn't make it easy on Matt, but we're here to give out stickers, and that's what you get when you win. If you beat Matt, you get a 6-pack of sifted stickers that we will send anywhere in the world. And we do. We've sent them to Portugal, to Canada, all over the place. UK, Ireland, Scotland. We've sent them all over.
If somebody wins twice, look up like a research station in Antarctica we can send them to. Just some research station in Antarctica just gets stickers from this thing they never heard of.
Randomly.
Just to say we sent stickers to Antarctica.
That would be funny. Look, if you've won already, don't compete. Let somebody else win. Look, and I realize some of you may be like, well, if I win, I'll give them to somebody else. Just let somebody else win. You can't replace the feeling of winning When you actually win it, you get that rush, that adrenaline, that serotonin. Let them have it. If you've won, just sit back and enjoy the show. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clues, and I guarantee someone's going to get the name of this game before I deliver the 5th clue. Everybody ready? Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
All right, here's the first clue. Let me bring up the chat here on screen so everyone can see if somebody there gets it first. Make sure we're at the bottom. Here we go. Clue number 1. If you believe what you do will come back to you, this game is a great fit. If you believe that what you do will come back to you, this game is a great fit. And just so you know, the clues are not as obvious at first, and the further we go, the more obvious they get, and the easier it is to guess the name of the game. Wii Sports Australian Boomerang. Good ones, that saber. Wii Fit, no.
Taz the Tasmanian Tiger.
Ring Fit Adventure, no. DDR, no. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, no. That's a good one, too. God of War, no. Braid, no. God of War 2018, no. Nope. Okay, I'm going to go to the second clue. I always feel good when you guys don't get it on the first clue. So I've achieved my goal this week. Here's the next one. This game doesn't take place in a galaxy far, far away, but Darth Vader still might like living there. This game doesn't take place in a galaxy far, far away, but Darth Vader still might like living there. Carmageddon, no. Quantum Break, no. Any guesses, Matt? First clue again was, if you believe what you do will come back to you, this game is a great fit. Chrono Trigger, no. Oh, we may make it to the third clue this time. Mass Effect, no. Leisure Suit Larry, no. Infamous, that's it. Minority Games got it. That's it. It is Infamous. Do you see the clues now?
No.
No?
I mean, I get the morality system from the first one. I don't understand the Darth Vader
Karma
thing.
system. And, well, before I explain all the rest of the clues, here's a round of applause for Minority Games. Congratulations. You have a 6-pack of Sifted stickers coming your way. It does not matter where you live. You can DM us here on Twitch. You can DM us on Twitter at Sifted Games. You can DM me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can send me a DM at Shane on Sifted. Whatever. Just make sure you give us your full real name and your full address, and we'll ship those stickers out to you. Here are the rest of the clues. The combat in this game is supercharged. That probably would have given it for most people. The studio that created this game isn't interested in fighting fair. Sucker Punch. And the last clue, Sly Robots foretold this game's many elements. So Sly Cooper and Rocket Robot on Wheels. And that gets you Infamous. And the first clue was, if you believe what you do will come back to you, this game is a great fit. It has a karma system in Infamous. The second clue, this game doesn't take place in a galaxy far, far away, but Darth Vader still might living there. The game takes place in Empire City. So the Empire. So there you go. Infamous. And our winner, Minority Games. Congratulations, brother. And we'll get those stickers out to you as soon as you hit us up with your address so we can ship them out to you. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions if you want to do a little Q&A here, people, before we get out of here. Let's see what we got. There's one. From ETH Demon, do you think Microsoft releasing Halo multiplayer kind of kills Battlefield in its cradle? It wasn't being talked about positively as is. I'm not sure what that means.
As in, will people just play
Which
Halo
game, though?
Just play Battlefield.
Oh, okay. It wasn't... Wait, was Battlefield not being talked about as positively, or was Halo not being talked about as positively?
Battlefield.
Oh. Okay.
Like, basically, are they burying Battlefield by putting Halo out? As
I think that might be part of the plan.
Some of it.
I mean, EA is a big partner.
They are partnered with EA, so they probably don't want to do that
completely do it. But it's Halo.
To be fair, that only counts on one platform.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Battlefield's going to release on other platforms other than just Xbox. Look, I don't think it kills Battlefield. Nothing's going to kill Battlefield. Battlefield's going to do well, I think. I'm more excited to play Battlefield than I am to keep playing Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard, which is not the norm for me. So I don't think it'll kill Battlefield in its cradle at all. Could it hurt it? A little bit on Xbox, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they were both also Game Pass.
yeah,
so.
you're also going to be able to get Battlefield
There's no
for
reason
free
people
on
can't
Game
try
Pass.
both.
Yeah, why not? Here's just a comment from Texture Glitch. Matt, I want to thank you for recommending the Batman Court of Owls comic storyline a couple shows ago. I bought it, and it's great. Thanks.
It is great.
Yep, always good to help people out.
I don't know how well it's going to translate into the game, but it's
Yep.
a great comic story.
Justin Horman, how did you use my avatar with the question, like the head and the hands thing? That's awesome, dude. How did you do that? That's cool. So just as Xbox had a 20th anniversary, when do you reckon, I love the word reckon, did the branch reach its nadir? The Red Ring of Death fiasco, the Xbox One reveal, and launch.
I think it was around the time of the debacle with the planned DRM and Sony dropping the mic on him. Like that whole stretch there from like E3 to launch of the Xbox One, like that was probably the most dire it ever looked for
The
Xbox.
YouTube videos,
Yeah.
TV, where they talked about TV like incessantly.
That
at
is
their press
definitely
conference.
where Xbox has lost its way the worst.
Yeah,
At this point.
the Red Ring of Death, like that's something that you can't really foresee, and it's like once it happened, I feel like Microsoft dealt with it really well.
Kind of dealt with it as best you could. It wasn't great, but like the Xbox One run up was a series of horrible choices that did not need to be made the way they were.
Yep, I'd agree with that. So yeah, I think that for me probably is a big breaking point for Microsoft. Ashes in the Hourglass. I recently played Katamari Damacy for the first time, and it's the first time a game had made me laugh from its mechanics and gameplay. Has any game made you laugh from the gameplay and not just the writing? Yeah, I mean, that's one of them.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Animal Leader is another one. That was a goofy game for GameCube.
I mean,
and actually, I think it originally was an N64 game, and they re-released it for GameCube because it came out late in the N64's life cycle. That's a goofy, weird game that was like just funny. Most of the games like that come from Japan.
yeah. I mean, like I'd say like GTA did
Yeah.
that. Like a lot of amusing, just running around doing open world stuff, running people over and knocking things. Yeah, that was half the appeal at the time.
I played Halo Infinite yesterday. I laughed a bunch of times because just insane stuff happens. Like you throw a grenade and just you don't even see the warthog yet. You throw a grenade trying to blow up someone on foot, and around the corner comes like a warthog going like 100 miles an hour, and just at the perfect time it drives over that grenade and goes boom, and it flies up in the air, and you see like 3 guys flying out, and like they're flying out and they're trying to throw their grenades at you. Like it's mayhem, and like it just makes me laugh because you're just it's fun. So yeah, I mean, I laugh all the time at stuff that isn't just like, is that a funny joke that they wrote in the script? Like, I think that's one of the pure joys of playing games. Like, if I weren't doing this, I wouldn't be doing this. So yeah, it happens all the time for me.
I would go back also to, I always think of Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, where you had the most powerful move you had in that game was a kick.
Oh yeah,
And you basically just boot people like across the map and like knock them off cliffs. And like you never needed to swing your damn sword in that game. You just kick orcs off ledges.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Very funny.
There were some moments in that game where I laughed that weren't related to jokes or writing. Like the punting in that. You could punt. The first time I punted one of those little balls and it went whoosh and flew off the screen, I laughed. So yeah, that stuff happens all the time. I think it's one of the greatest parts about gaming. And I'm glad you zeroed in on it. So thank you for your question. Ashes in the Hourglass. Scorpio's Finest, have you ever considered partnering with another smaller gaming site? I'm not sure what that would look like or what we would do. Do you mean like me going on their podcast and them coming on our? I don't know what you're insinuating there. Vincent, and this will be the last one. Call of Duty Vanguard is holding a free multiplayer weekend this weekend. How much of that is the other shooter competition, and how much is the reported weak sales? Yeah, so we didn't bring this up on today's show. Sales of Vanguard were down 40% year over year.
Wow.
And I hate to admit it that I called it. Like, I could tell that game was not tracking the way prior Call of Duties were, and I was right. It's not. Sales are went down big time. To answer your question, I think it's a little bit of both. But at the same time, this happens pretty much every year they'll do free multiplayer weekends. Maybe not this close to launch, though. Usually it's more in
This seems fast.
Yeah, usually it's more like in December when they start doing that stuff. And a lot of times it's more double XP weekends.
Yeah.
To get the noobs who are just joining so they aren't getting their asses kicked after the first day or whatever. They can level up and get their gun where they want it and blah, blah, blah. But to answer your question, generally, yes, I do think it's a reaction to what's going on with the game and to the stiff competition that is out there right now for Vanguard. You got Halo, you got Battlefield. Those are two heavy hitters, and maybe that is why it's down so much. I didn't think it would drop 40%. Dude, that's insane. So maybe that is feeding into it. Maybe that's a part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I think a big part of it is just the game just doesn't resonate. People are not getting excited about Vanguard. So
you see the rumor that they're going to put Captain America in it?
No.
There's a rumor going around that Captain America is going to be a guest character in the multiplayer on Vanguard. Which it kind of work considering the premise, like that they're basically the Howling Commandos.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but it could work.
We did talk about Avengers.
We did. Yep, so absolutely.
Him being part of the kind of international team of badasses who do the things no one else can do, it kind of fits.
That's true. That's it for GameFace 279. We went over again. That's just the way November's going to rock. There's just too much to talk about, too many big games coming out, and we're just having too much fun on this show to kill it right at 3 hours. If you're listening to this show out on any of the podcast services, and by the way, people, if you are watching the show on YouTube, and we've got some comments, people are like, how can I get like a podcast? There's podcast feeds of this show. It's everywhere. It's on iHeartRadio. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere. So if you want an audio version of the show, just go to any of those services and search for GameFace and subscribe. And when you do that, please give us a review. It helps our show jump up in the rankings on those services big time. And there's enough people listening to GameFace or watching GameFace that if you, even half of you, went and gave us a review, I guarantee you the show will skyrocket up into the rankings and we will get more patrons and we will have more revenue to do more stuff. Maybe even do a second episode of GameFace a week. So there's, even if you're not able to go to patreon.com/sifted and pledge anything, there's lots of stuff that you can do to help us. And we appreciate any of it and all of it, in all honesty. What else? Don't forget Factor questions coming soon. Don't forget Black Friday. We have a t-shirt clearance sale. Don't forget that our new shirts are coming soon. You're going to have to pre-order those only. There's going to be no inventory. But we'll message that stuff out whenever all that stuff's ready for pre-orders and all that jazz. We'll make sure that you guys know what is going on. So, Matt, another great show, hanging with you. Great talking games with you guys. Everybody out there, you guys have a great week. Much love. GameFace is up and out.